Yo, wait, why did my sound turn off? Dude, you guys are just sitting here in silence. That's fucking crazy. Hello? What are you fucking doing, man? Alright, what's up? Y'all know the best thing you can do for your body when you wake up is to drink 12 ounces of water? Alright, well, now you know, just in case you didn't know. Max, are you still taking cold baths? I have a short and long answer. The short answer is yes, but I have heavily changed how and when I use it. Long answer, so I used to do them every day as like a wake up and just do it. There's a lot of reasons for that. My main one was for ADHD, actually. I can like get your shit going crazy style. There's even been like people addicted to cocaine and stuff that have like been able to curb their addiction by taking ice baths because it like gives a similar rush. Only problem with taking ice baths in the morning is it fucking sucks. It like really sucks. And like the idea, okay, for me, just getting out of bed, just getting out of bed in general in the morning for me takes a while. The idea that like you wake up and the first thing you do is just plop yourself in an ice bath it's psycho shit, man. Like you have to be built different, but like built bad, I think, to do that. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it changed how I actually use it. So I did some more reading about it. And one study that has proven that ice baths is really good for, they did it in marathon runners. Or I think it wasn't distance runners, like competitive runners. They did a study with people who did two races in the same day, one in the morning, one at night. And what they did is they took an ice bath in between, and the studies overwhelmingly showed that like the people who took an ice bath had like better performance in that same day. So that's kind of how I use, and there's another study showing ice baths having a negative benefit, which is hypertrophy, right? So hypertrophy is what you guys, if you don't know what that means, it's basically the process of going to the gym and fucking your muscles up so they grow back stronger. The whole like getting yoked thing, that you're doing hypertrophy training. You're trying to make your muscles bigger. Okay, so ice baths are bad for that because ice baths make you recover really quick and they reduce your inflammation, but it turns out that's actually what you want to like get bigger and stronger. So there's some studies that show that. However, there's still like bodybuilders that take ice baths. This is such a weird way to start the stream, but you wanted the long answer. Either way, there is some logic into you can only work out as much as you've recovered, right? So recovery is really, really important if you're trying to do that all the time. So I never take an ice bath after I lift for strength, which I do 3 to 4 times a week. I used to do that 0. I do it 3 to 4 times now because I just like it's now what's gating me to getting better, where before it was more skill stuff. And also when I was lifting before, it was like I couldn't recover enough to play. Like I basically valued my ice time more than lifting. But wow, I'm just saying some shit you guys probably don't care about. But I'll finish it up by saying I take ice baths when I have a game in the morning and at night to recover. And sometimes I take them generally after games, but never when I'm like currently having resistance trained, because I value the muscle growth. That's it. Sorry. That's it. TL ice bath at the facility 11.2. Okay, real talk though. We had something like that at the last race. We had hot and cold tubs. So after lunch and after dinner, there was one of the hallways at Team Liquid. We had like 6 tubs of water, and 3 of them were ice cold and 2 of them were really hot, and they were just doing contrast therapy, if you're familiar with what that is. And I didn't use it at all because I'm not playing, but as you guys can imagine, if you're like in the raid gaming for 16 hours a day, you get like, you're like pressing a lot of keys and clicking a lot of buttons, so you get carpal tunnel. And I know a few of our players were saying that was fucking sick. That was like really, really nice to do that a couple times a day. Are you watching the Stanley Cup crazy style? Yeah. 11.2 news today. Dude, remember when you guys used to think that the reason I was going live was because there's some... I mean, there should be 11.2 news. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't actually want 11.2 to be announced like this week because that means PTR testing could be next week. And the only time that I would miss PTR testing, this entire PTR testing cycle, would be next week. My sister's been a resident in Miami as an ER doctor for the last 4 years, and she's graduating. So her like graduation ceremony is June 18th. So I'm going to be in Miami from June 17th to June 19th, or maybe a few days after that. So those are like the only days. If they do it on like next Thursday and Friday, I'm going to be fucking so mad because the last raid, Styx was, if you guys remember, they tested Styx, just Styx, or maybe it was like one other boss that didn't really matter, but it was like Styx on a Friday on Heroic, and I missed that testing. And like I watched the recording of it, but like even me missing one testing just has such a huge impact. Like we were just less prepared going into Mythic testing for Styx than we were the other bosses, and I just missed a testing because I had to be in Miami for something that I had already like had planned. It was like also that one thing. So if that happened 2 tiers in a row, I would be so sad. Is that why they can't afford seed anymore? Yeah, that was sad. I don't know anything about the business case of PvP. Like how much they get paid versus like how much value they present to an esports organization. I wasn't in parts of those talks. I had nothing to do with them being picked up or released, other than me expressing my interest to them for them to pick them up back then. So I don't really know. Like, for example, I'm not under the impression like TL like fucked them over or anything, and I don't think they are either, hopefully. But it's just one of those, just like, it just kind of didn't make sense to do. I don't know if they offered them or lowballed them or whatever, but it just didn't work out. So sad, especially because those are my friends. Also they won 2 titles with us, and they were in town for one of them, and I got to take them out to dinner afterwards and had, just, I don't PvP, but like, we do a lot of similar stuff, and I just find all of them really cool, spent a lot of time with them. So yeah, sucks to see, for sure. Yeah, hopefully we don't get fired next year. I think our contract is over next year. I think our value is as high as it's been. Like we're winning a lot. We're pulling in good numbers. We do a lot of like ads for them. So like I know we have value, and I know the races are profitable. So that would assume that we would get re-signed. But also when we signed with them initially, Team Liquid, it was not during like, esports is in a totally different spot. I believe when we signed with Team Liquid, there was still like VC money actively getting invested into esports. And that was like right when crypto was like going heavy in esports, right? So crypto, while Coinbase is still a sponsor of Team Liquid, like crypto has largely dried up in the esports scene, or especially from what it was before, and VC money has dried up, right? So now you have like the Esports World Cup, which clearly Team Liquid has invested in, especially with like Magnus Carlsen and stuff like that. So I don't know exactly how like the business case stacks up until we really start getting into negotiating for that. Honda wasn't super involved with us, but they might have been like in the future, right? I think Coinbase largely is our like Race World First sponsor. But like, you know, if we ever lost Coinbase, Honda would be an option, and now Honda isn't. Obviously, that entire Honda situation is fucked. If you guys are unaware of it, basically, I think it was. Well, actually, you know, I don't know. There's a small chance people get mad if I talked about it, but like that entire thing was reported on Twitter. Uh, it's pretty fucking stupid. Like basically it was an accident, but they just don't take. I also understand how they got offended, you know, but like, yeah. Uh, so that sucked. Honestly, Honda was looking for an excuse to get out of it. Yeah, I mean that's what a lot of people have assumed. I don't know if that's the case. I also can't really talk about it, but yeah. Anyways, let's just leave it at this. The Honda thing isn't good. Like for the prospects of us re-signing in a year. I know Team Liquid really likes us and we have a great relationship and would like to keep us and stuff. You know, I just don't really know how that process is going to go because, like I said, just when we signed versus now, totally different, like esport market economy. You know. In a theoretical world where you weren't Liquid, would you compete as Limit or make a new name? Well, let me just be 100% clear, just because I don't want like the wrong person to hear this and think we're like talking about dipping or whatever. We love Team Liquid. We want to be with Team Liquid. We don't want to go anywhere else, right? But in the scenario where, for whatever reason, out of our control or in our control, whatever, like we're no longer with Team Liquid, yeah, we would obviously still play. I don't really know exactly what we'd compete under, or I mean, obviously we would try to get picked up by someone else. That would be sweet. If in that scenario. Rivian Honda. Yeah, dude, I got a new Rivian and I couldn't even talk about it because, you know, you couldn't okay, like when you have sponsors of any kind, they don't, you know, like we're sponsored by Monster. Like, do they want me drinking a Red Bull on stream? No. But also if I did, I wouldn't get killed for it. But like, you know, I probably shouldn't do that kind of shit, you know? But same thing with like Honda. Like if we're sponsored by Honda and I'm going on stream like, hey guys, I got a brand new car and it's not a Honda, they probably don't want that. They don't want me to buy a Honda or need me to buy a Honda, but they don't want me talking about buying something else, you know? By the way, love that Rivian. Hard love that car. Highly recommend. Max, if you spoke as a professional, would you just follow the money? What? I feel like you're trying to say something smarter than what you're saying. I mean, when signing any kind of deal for our guild, the number one priority is to make as much money for all of our team as possible. Um, Max, do you bump to the new Midnight single in your new Rivian? Wait a second. There's new Midnight? Hold the fuck up. Do you know what I realized recently? I fucking love the Midnight. Like I think they might be my like number one. My no, I think I listen to their music more than anything else. Oh, Digital Dreams. When did this come out? Oh, only like 2 weeks ago almost. Bumping it. Bro stuck in the 80s. Dude, I love all 80s music, honestly. The vibe's great. So good and so good live too. Dude, I don't know what it is, but I have absolutely no desire to see live music. I don't get it. I love music. I listen to music all the time. And someone's like, let's go to a concert. I'm like, there's like, infinite things I would rather do than do that. You wouldn't go to a symphony? Oh, I do that all the time. Well, all the time, maybe like 2 or 3 times a year. But yeah, I think that's different though. Like, even though both of them are showing up to an event to hear music made by people and you're going to that with a bunch of other people, I think going to like an orchestra or choir concert is a totally and completely different vibe than going to any kind of pop music concert. Maybe I'm like cherry picking that, but I also grew up like performing that music, so I have like a deeper appreciation. I went to school for it, you know. Maybe it's because I care more about like the quality of music, if that makes sense. Like if you're going to something live, it's a different vibe, but it's not like studio recorded, so it's a little bit less quality. And like everyone's yelling, and like you could be right next to the speaker. It's not about the experience; it's about the listening experience. And I feel like most live classical things are in really like good halls with good acoustics, and it actually enhances the listening experience. So it's like literally higher quality to go there. Max, I watched the recent video you posted. The airplane seat is a good analogy. The person did have the correct mindset for improvement. I posted a video? That's hype. Wait, main channel or clips channel? Main? Yo, W Frank. Let's go. That was a good react. That was a really interesting video. My favorite part of that reaction was when he said something like, okay, I got done talking to the officers and they told me they'd get back to me in 15 minutes. And I paused the video and I did like a couple minute long monologue about how it's so great that they got right back to him and they didn't really keep him waiting. And I said W, whatever the guild name was. I think it was Tab Target. I said W Tab Target. And then I unpaused it. And literally seconds later, he goes, actually, it took them like an hour or two to get back to me. Okay, L Tab Target, L Tab Target, not W. That was fucking, you can't make that up. This is perfect timing. I guess I could have made that up by pre-watching it. Here's my only thing. If you were to pre-watch videos to like technically generate funny content by having perfect timing on things, would that actually end up being a benefit if it was obvious to anyone who's not stupid that you're reacting to something you've already seen? You know? Just think about that, like as a creator. Like I could see an argument to where if you really wanted to make top tier content, you would always pre-watch every video you react to, and you would literally, I don't know how long it would take you, it depends on the person, but you would like workshop a stand-up routine basically on how that reaction would go. If you're really good at it, viewers wouldn't catch on to it, and then I think, and then you just have the best content around, right? And you're putting more effort into your content, but it's also just not authentic. Like I would never want to do that because it's just not real, you know? And I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it would be obvious that it's not real. An example of this is anytime someone on YouTube is reading from a script, no matter how natural they make it sound, you know it's from a script, and that takes me out of it. It's weird. Unless you're like, like crazy good at acting or something. Thoughts on Classic Plus? Absolutely zero thoughts. Has something been announced, or are you ripping that straight from like BlizzCon 2 years ago where people were like, dude, Season of Discovery is the precursor to Classic Plus, and you're just ripping that out of nowhere right now. Because that would be crazy if it's that one. And especially asking me. Just ripping off all the leaked Blizzard Q&As. Oh, there's some leaked shit? Hey, where's that? I'd like a leak. Yo, I heard Dratnos social engineered Blizzard. And Dratnos has hella clout. So basically, Dratnos came out with a video recently talking about... It was called 11 Rants About World of Warcraft. Or I think that was the number 11. Great video, by the way. You should see it if you haven't. I'm sure most of you have. And the first thing he talks about is tank threat, which has been complained about forever. And then they buffed tank threat. They did it in a less... if you listen to his whole argument, they did it in a less like nuanced way than Dratnos was suggesting. Like basically he said it's good that threat exists and you should have to be in range. Like threat basically solves kiting, and like kiting sucks. Tanks don't want to have to do that, and like threat is a way to make you not kite. Like if you have to kite and then now people pull threat off you, kiting isn't an option, and then that's good. They don't want you to kite, and we as players don't want to kite W, right? So he was suggesting like make ranged things, like things you can spam from ranged, do less threat, but like things that you're in melee to hit them, you know, like swipe or the initial hit of thrash or I don't know, like everything. Thunderclap, you get the point, right? Soul Cleave, Spirit Bomb, all that stuff. But specifically buff the stuff in melee, so it more solves that problem. Now, when you blanket buff threat, it might initially solve the problem, but it's presenting a new one potentially, which is, you could run in, if you buff threat by too much, you can now just generate so much threat initially that you can just kite later, which is like bad for everybody. So just a small thought, but we don't know if that's gonna happen, right? So, gee, wait, people don't like kiting, bro? What do you think? You know the answer to that question, even though. Well, maybe, are you being sarcastic? You're probably being sarcastic. I love to kite as a tank. Okay, if that's the case, why did people hate Necrotic? Okay, let me... What's the best way to frame this? Because, like, if you just like kiting, like, I'm not saying literally everyone doesn't like it. I think I actually might have said literally everyone. But let's just say almost no one. Like, why do people hate Necrotic? Because what Necrotic is kiting simulator. You go in, you get threat, and then you run away until your Necrotic goes off. That, you hate that because you get to not... Kiting means you're not playing your character. Why did melee DPS dislike... Was it Storming? The one that just, like, tornadoes went all around the mobs and you just had to, like, AFK for a second and run away? Or... what was the other one? Not Bursting, but Spiteful? Was it Spiteful is the one I'm talking about? Actually, tanks hated Storming. It was Spiteful before they nerfed it. Or why do casters hate Volcanic? Because they have to AFK their character, you know? Like basically any gameplay that involves when there's mobs alive that you could be hitting and instead you're running around doing nothing. So all of those things I just mentioned, or tank kiting in general, players kind of hate it almost universally. Max, you always talk about the guy who's on the higher end of the skill disparity in the guild. No, I don't. I feel like when I'm talking about skill parity, I almost always explain like why it also sucks for the person who's at the lower end. But how does the panorama look for the lower end guy? How likely is it for them to fix or patch those problems and avoid dragging their guildies? Or is it better to go down a level for those people? You know what okay, I have a different conversation, I think, around that. You guys know how they say in sports... do you know how in sports people say to, like, if you want to get better at something, you play with better players? Like if you're playing, I play hockey all the time, right? You will get way better at hockey by playing hockey with higher level players because you have to get used to a faster pace of game and more processing speed, to where if you were to just be thrown back into a lower level game, you would just It would be slow for you because you're used to something much faster, right? Is that true in WoW? Like, do you get better by playing with better players? I think so. But, like, not for the same reasons, though. Right? Only if they communicate with you? Yeah, I mean, if you've got a group of... Yeah, maybe communication... The difference between both of those things could be, like, one has communication and one doesn't. But, like, if you play in a better guild... Like, okay, let's say... Okay, same player, but scenario 1 and scenario 2. This player is, like, a 40 out of 100 Madden rating, okay? But they're rating in a guild of a bunch of 40s and 50s. So, like, they're behind, but they're not too far behind, and they can kind of progress at their own pace. Now, say you throw that 40 overall Madden rating player in with, like, Liquid, you know? Do you really think they're going to improve at a bigger rate? I feel like they're going to be so far behind and struggling. They're going to be so stressed out and, like, unable to function whatsoever. Maybe this is an extreme example. But, like, I feel like they wouldn't be getting better. They'd probably get demotivated, and they would hate their role in the guild. It would just be making everyone mad, even though it's not their fault. You know? They're just in the wrong place. 1,000% they would improve at a rapid rate. I think that would be true if, like, they hung out outside of Raid with all of the Liquid players, or just forget about Liquid because this is my guild. Just, like, literally any really, really top guild. And, like, maybe they're doing a lot of Mythic Plus with them so they can ask questions, and they're in that environment all the time so they get better. I agree about the environment and being around better players and, like, listening to things. But, like, you can do a lot of that on your own. Maybe it's easier to do in a group, you know? Because, like, streaming exists. You could watch a fucking banger streamer for your class and watch. The instant way to get better, by the way, if you play Mythic Plus a lot, this has to be the, like, single highest value thing you can do to get better. If you play Mythic Plus and you record yourself. A lot of people don't do this, but just record yourself, not on stream, just like local recording to your computer, and watch yourself do the highest key you've done in a certain dungeon that you've done a lot and you feel like you've problem solved it on your own. You haven't done a lot of outside thinking. You're like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. All right. And then find a video somewhere of the absolute best person or the highest ranked person. They may not be the best. They could just spend more time, but, like, and then just watch your VOD versus theirs and see what they're doing different than you. And more importantly, don't just copy it. Like, ask why. Like, why would they do that? Now, this is a lot of effort to put into a fucking video game. A lot of people don't want to do this. But if you want to get better, this is, like, absolute number one thing to do, right? Dude, that just doing that alone, that process is probably the single best thing you can do to, like, get better at the game if you wanted to do that. Max, I'll give you an example. I was always a mediocre Mythic Plus player, like 3KIO. In Dragonflight Season 2, I played with some really good people randomly and made some friends that were way better at the time. And I got better, much better. And in Season 3, I got title. For me personally, playing with really good people helped a lot. Okay, was it playing with the people, or was it that because you were playing with people, you were playing a higher level of key, and then you had to get better because you were forced to? An example, when you're doing 3KIO keys, there are things you never have to think about. The dungeons are objectively easier because this ability won't kill you. Go up a few key levels, now this and this and this will kill you. Go up 5 key levels, now everything's trying to kill you. And to do that successfully, you have to treat every mechanic like it'll kill you, and you become you are forced to become infinitely more aware of your surroundings and how to use certain defensives more optimally, and just in general how to survive. Now, when you go back to that 3KIO key, that shit's jingly keys baby mode for you, right? Because you're just used to something higher. So, I mean, I guess you're proving my point. Or not my point, the opposite of my point, which is that, like, just like in sports and WoW, it's the same thing. When you play with higher players. But I think it has less to do with players and more to do with the higher content. Right? But the better players are in the higher content. Yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe they're the same thing. Bro, I'll tell you what, actually. I think, like, playing... You guys keep using, like, a few of you keep bringing up the hockey example. You get used to the speed of the game at a higher level, but I will say, as someone who plays an insane amount of hockey at a very, very high level, and I also play low-level skates, which I'm about to stop doing because they make me depressed very recently. But, like, when you play at a high level, you learn how to, like, shoot really hard passes and catch really hard passes, but more importantly, you put it where they're skating so they don't have to stop skating to catch it. And if you go back to a lower level and you pass like that, number one, if you send a hard pass, they are not catching it. It's just a turnover. Right? And if you go to a lower level and you put it where they're skating, they're not going to skate to it, and they're just going to... A lot of lower level hockey players actually, like, they stop skating to catch a pass. Like, you pass it to them, they literally stand still, catch it, and then continue skating again. So, like, you actually end up passing in the wrong spot. So you develop really bad habits, actually, by playing at lower levels, which is why I'm going to stop doing it. But by playing at a higher level, you actually kind of make yourself low-key worse at the lower levels, in a way. I mean, isn't that kind of like the WoW example of that? Is like you're someone who does high Mythic Plus and you queue into a heroic dungeon, you pull the whole dungeon, and you're like making this casual dad tank really mad because you pull it, you tank it. Isn't that the WoW equivalent? Thoughts on making resilient keys give you the key level 1 higher than you've completed? I haven't really thought about resilient keys at all, honestly. I have never interacted with them myself, and I feel like I'm not qualified to give you a good take on them, really, unless it's like really obvious. I think it's from the sounds of it, from hearing Dorky and Dratnos talk about it, it sounds like resilient keys are a very like nuanced issue that are overall good for the game, but have some interesting downsides that have hit the community recently. Oh, let's yell. You guys got some good comments on resilient keys under the last pod. Ooh, okay. Let me look at them. Oh, I haven't looked at comments on our YouTube videos in a while. I wonder if the entire comment section still hates my fucking guts. Let's see. What do we got? Potty C. Let's get depressed live. Edna, stop it, girl. You need to poop? Hi, girly. No? Okay. If she keeps barking, I might have to let her out. People are selling key attempts. Let's see. I'm really surprised that this podcast got 60K views on YouTube when we led with MDI. Dude, this has 67K views after one day. This is why I hate reaction content. If this ends up having more views, maybe it won't, and hopefully it won't, but if this ends up having more views than this guy's original video, I'm going to be, like, actually depressed. Anyways. Okay. Love how they're talking about bricking keys mattering about TGP because they're time limited. Resilient keys are a godsend. Are a godsend for 99% of players. The fact that 1% of you are spending 5 hours wiping on one key and running it back over and over again is a you problem, not a game problem. I don't think Dorky was saying that resilient keys were a problem for like the top 1%. He was saying it's nice for us. I think that the complaints that I've seen about resilient keys are a couple. Number one, people are selling them, and if like, okay, it's existing in the group finder, and that's like kind of a problem. It would be really bad if it was rampant. Like basically, you couldn't find these keys unless you were paying for the resilient. That would be, as far as I know, that's not the case. Like you can still find keys without it, but obviously it could ramp to that if not addressed, maybe. That, and then I've heard an issue from one of my chatters that the ecosystem for like not the very highest keys, but just below that, that ecosystem is actually used to be pretty alive, and now it's way less alive because of resilient keys. Because once people hit that threshold, they don't go below it anymore, and they used to for homework keys and stuff. So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think all of us agreed that resilient keys were good, though. I don't remember what the responses were to that. These guys have no idea what it's like to pug without having good friends to play with. Okay, I'm just going to stop this right there. That's true. But do we imply that we do? You know what I mean? Like, I don't, we're just three people talking about our experiences as we can because we're us. You know, like we are who we are. But like, we're not, like, what do you want us to do? Like, I feel like anytime things come up and we're like trying to speak for the pug player and like, you know, kind of go from our learned experiences from other people, we're usually trying to like help them in some way, not usually shit on them because we don't understand them, hopefully. Right. But I don't think we're all like, this is exactly how pugging without any friends works, you know? I don't understand these comments. Yep, they stream pugs for a week or two and then think they know it when they only really push with the best in the world and wiping in a random pug. Who are they talking about? Like, two things can be true. You can stream pugs to try to understand it more and to try to make content, but then still we're not, I don't think, I guess I can't really speak for them. I could definitely speak for Dratnos. I don't know what Dorky has done. Dorky's a wild card, but I really, really doubt that Dorky has ever said, like, I fully understand what it's like to pug at a low level with no friends. He would just never say that. Like, you're just like you're just straight up projecting your insecurities, right? When I log in, I have 2 hours to play with my 40, half my friends are already grouped up and the other half are playing another game, and you pug instead of waiting for them to lose someone the next 2 hours. Okay, yeah, that sucks, but like, what do we have to do with that at all? Like, I'll say one thing very confidently. If you are pugging in WoW and you're not actively playing with friends, either due to, like this guy said, they're already in another group or playing another game, or just for whatever reason you don't have any friends, WoW is going to be way less fun for you. WoW is infinitely more fun with friends. Like, crazy style. Way better. You know? That objectively true, right? Much like maybe any game, but yeah. Damn. No one here. What is this? How are there not more people being like, you guys are crazy? Am I crazy for... Okay, this is my stream, and I guess this is an echo chamber, right? You guys are just... I feel like you guys don't agree with... I feel like you guys definitely tell me I'm stupid when I'm stupid. So maybe do that here, but like, these are sending me crazy. Yeah, they're just totally detached. They have hours to grind, evenings or entire days of their group. My schedule's really fluid. I cannot commit to any schedule. I've been sitting at half 18s and half 19s for almost 2 weeks now. What are we saying that is opposing this? They're talking into the void. There's absolutely nothing. Yes, but if your resilient key was always one up, okay. I don't even know. What am I doing? Didn't I just say I'm going to go into the YouTube comments and just get depressed on purpose? And I said that and I acknowledged it, and then I'm still fucking doing it. That's insane. Well, you guys told me to look at the Potty C comments. I just thought there was going to be something like credible. The thing is with YouTube comments is usually like the early comments in YouTube are good. Like that's actually what separates a few things of social media is on YouTube. Generally speaking, the best and highest rated comments go to the top, and like the super degenerate, like the worst shit you'll ever read, scroll to the bottom and they're there, which I think is ideal, by the way. This is actually how Twitter used to be. Twitter used to be like the best replies were at the top. That has completely flipped. If you go to any Twitter thing, and this is clearly their business model, and you click on any article that pops up on your feed, the most divisive and controversial shit will be at the top, and you have to scroll to like, there's still super degenerate shit at the bottom, but you have to scroll to like the middle to find the reasonable regular people takes, which I don't even really know how anyone like that is still left on Twitter. It's definitely a minority. Then I just want to do Twitter flipping that. My only point here is Twitter flipping that sucks. What the fuck are you all talking about? Attempts mattering. You are raiders. If you fail the boss attempt, you just run back to the graveyard and try the exact same content difficulty, even with the same group. What do you? So this was a take that like Dorky, like basically how do you solve basically people turning resilient keys into MDI keys, where you try the craziest pulls and you just keep resetting. I'm not even saying this is a bad thing. This is actually how I prefer dungeon content. But the argument was like, for people who don't, how do you make resilient keys not just basically, some people prefer doing a dungeon, and if you wipe, you still try to make it work, and you just like do the dungeon in its entirety. Not wipe, but like something minor goes wrong, right? You still try to do the dungeon in its entirety. But like now, on certain resilient keys, you just try crazy pulls, and you're like kind of progressing a key, and it turns into kind of like pulling a raid boss. If something goes wrong, you just reset and go again. And we were just simply saying, if Blizzard wants to solve that, how do you solve it? I think there's some precedent for that. There wasn't in the past, because up until this expansion, they have never made a change specifically for high key players, ever. Like, as far as the way it was designed. They didn't even refer to it, really. Basically, they designed up to their reward path, which was up to a 10. What used to be a 20, now is a 10. And then they never balanced above that. It was just purely whatever was there. And now it's... now they have created a different system for specifically high key players. So I feel like those people having input on how that plays out as far as their gameplay loop is valid, right? Makes sense. Hey. Edna, it's okay, baby girl. Come here. Edna, come. Come here, girl. Hi. Bro, that's a pig? Dude, we call her Pig. Her name's Edna, but I refer to her as Pig most of the time. I am usually playing keys just below title and made no friends at all. Tried a few times, but you add people, you just never play a thing by mentioning your move. How do you actually do it? Besides being in a guild? Well, I think most people knowing of each other and becoming friends in WoW is through a guild, or initially was. Because like if you think about it, a lot of people like meet new people by learning and like joining new Mythic Plus groups. So usually do that through a guildie, or like someone, maybe that other group you're joining is like people who have played in a guild together. You can certainly meet people outside of that, but as far as like dungeon stuff, a lot of it's just like, hey, nice, thanks for the run, and then you dip, you know. Actually, coming to think about it, do you think that's why Blizzard still makes Mythic Raid something you have to schedule and like be a part of in a large group with all of its drawbacks? One of the reasons they will never move off that, or seem like they'll never move off that, is because like a guild is the breeding ground for like social activity and like getting to know people, even in other things of the game. Like if you turned everything into like you could just log on and play as a solo player, could that not kill like the social construct of the game? I never really thought about it like that before. Maybe that is something to do with it. It's actually hard for semi-hardcore people. Casual guilds and friendly players are plenty, but the 1% sticks with the 1%, and everything between that and casual is kind of rough. I think you're just into different things. Max, I think you should go to the bench video instead and read the Tettles is wrong comments. That's way better content. I don't click on bench videos. Resilient keys are fine in my opinion. You better prog. It's interesting that most of the player base don't want to go voice for higher keys. In my active RBG time during Shadowlands, oh my god. Everyone was in voice and you got kicked if you didn't want to join voice. Oh, yeah. 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 What else did you do? Bro. I shudder at the sight of RBGers. 11.2 reveal when. Wait, can we do some technology? Wait, that makes no sense. Research. We do some technology. Can we do some research here? When in relation to, let me get these numbers right. Let me actually write them down because this is going to be very confusing because every single time I talk about this, I always get the numbers mixed up. Okay, so 11.0.7 release. Because I think we have a date for that release, just not the PTR. PTR is kind of more interesting because it's more relevant to now. Versus 11.1.0 announcement. Not release date, because that comes at a separate time. Okay, so I guess we'll just separate it like this. Does anyone know when, like, dates? Like, what are the dates here? Okay, 11.0.7 released on December 17th, 2024. Okay. So this released on 12/17/2024. All right, chat. I know you guys feel a certain way about dates. This is how I put it. This is how I write them. It's okay. Any opinions on tipping as well? Okay, here we go. So does anyone have, this is going to be really hard to find, but it would basically be a tweet from Warcraft. Maybe Warcraft doesn't have a lot of tweets. Maybe they do. I bet they just tweet like random shit every day. Like how long will it take to go back in Warcraft Twitter and find when they announced the 11.1 content? So, okay, I'm scrolling and I'm already in May. That's kind of a vibe. They do have a lot of tweets. Dude, I'm already in April. Okay, we can actually find this on my own. Unless you found a Wowcast date. Hold on, chat. We're so scrolling right now. Dude, why is the U.S. Army trending? Do you guys want to sign up for the Army? Put on those funny hats? Get huge, do some pull-ups? All right. Okay, I'm going to start slowing down. It would be a big tweet, too. Oh, here we go. Celebrate. No, that's New Year. Here we go. Join the devs for a deep dive of the first major patch, Undermined. Okay, I don't know if this was later than the actual announcement of the content. No, let's see. Siren Isle rolls out on servers today. Maybe that was the announcement. Hold on. We'll find out. I think it was. I think it was. Okay, so 12/19. Okay, and as far as the release date announced, that's not super relevant. It's usually like a couple weeks before it comes out. Okay, so you guys are wondering when the next patch is coming out. 11.1.7 release. Do we have a date for this? This is like next couple weeks, right? Isn't it like next Tuesday maybe? Dude, I'm going to be in fucking out of town for another major announcement just due to random RNG. That's actually insane. That makes me so mad. Okay. So that means we would predict the 11.1 or 11.2.0 content announcement accountment to be 6/19. Which I will not be in town. I go out of town like very infrequently, and I still, man, I got a Switch 2 yesterday. Mario World or Mario Kart World is pretty sick. Max, have you been able to meet Liquid League of Legends guys at the Illinois training facility? Yeah, almost every time I go there. Does it go crazy? It is honestly pretty cool. But there's not a lot of games to play for it right now, you know? Just like old shit, but... I do feel stupid, though, because I was just getting some accessories for the Switch 2, made sure I had enough Joy-Cons and stuff if I was playing some games with friends. And then I bought those stupid little steering wheel things. Like, these things. And, like, these things, bro. I'm just trying to make sure this isn't using my address anywhere. Yeah, it's not. This shit. Right here. Wait, I'm, like, double-checking that my address isn't on here. Yeah, it's not. Look at that. These things. I bought these, and I was playing Mario Kart World yesterday, obviously on like, the Switch Pro controller. Instead of the... And I'm just like, bro, I bet you play, like, actual dog shit in Mario Kart with these. Like, obviously, it's for, like, you're LARPing, you know? But, why did I buy these, dude? Wait, maybe I can return them. Where did this all start? Oh, yeah, Dratnos has clout. That's how we got to the Nintendo Switch 2 steering wheel. Max 11.1 announcement was on November 13th. Wait, word? Real shit? November 13th. Oh, I see what you mean. I mean, it just... Oh, actually, wait. They're right. No, he is right. I think maybe it was a special situation because of the anniversary, though, and they put out a roadmap. They did like a big anniversary stream and announced it. But you're right, though. No, you're 100% right. I mean, regardless of the circumstances, if you're thinking of like each relative patch cycle, if this was like last patch cycle, we would have actually learned the name of the patch, probably who the boss was, probably what the name of the raid was, like a month ago, right? From now. It's just that we didn't have a specific thing to announce it at. No, you're right. Okay, that's actually really interesting. But I wonder how different this patch was, and I don't feel like going back to Dragonflight, but I wonder how different this patch was specifically because of that. Shadow Drop 11.2. Let's go. Shadow drops are an interesting concept. I feel like in WoW, a shadow drop would make a lot of people very mad. Like the reaction to this information would be very negative. Although, is that fair with WoW? Because the reaction to everything is negative. What's the most successful shadow drop ever? Was it Apex? I think it was Apex. Oh, the Oblivion one was good. I didn't play that. You think I'd like that? There's another game that came out earlier this year too that was like really highly reviewed, but I think it was like one of those LARPing games that I probably wouldn't be into. I need really, dude, any game for me, I need really good like combat and gameplay for sure, but I need a nice talent system, good character growth. Preferably be able to swap out like party members for different ones that specialize in different things. You know, just be real creative and shit. Which seems like it's like very JRPG coded. But most JRPGs gameplay sucks, unfortunately. Expedition 33? Yeah, I mean that game's goated. Yeah, yeah. Dune Awakening is crazy. Is it actually good? Kingdom Come 2? Yeah, that's the one. Like, I don't know how I have any other way to say this, but I feel like someone who is super into Oblivion coming out is the exact kind of person that in every single game would play like a human male that is a longsword main or like just warrior soldier guy. Like those are who those people are. I'm not going to elaborate on that at all. Undercover raid when I still watch the drunken one. It was so epic. Bro, I know. I'm washed up, dude. I'm not playing the game right now, so it's hard for me to make undercover content. But I do agree with you. There's some great content there, but all the stars have to align. Did I wonder, since undercover rating videos have been like some of my most popular, I wonder if I ever could have like sold out knowing that people wanted that content and then just like made the fuck out of it. Like every day, log on, try to do it every day. I don't think I could have done that because even in the small amount I've done it, anytime, if you guys ever watched me trying to do undercover raids, it's so hard to do because people know about it because it got really popular and like people would just know it's me instantly. Like instantly they would know. So like I feel like if I did it even more, it would be impossible to actually pull off in WoW. Like without doing it off stream, and as you guys know, that completely kills the content for me. It's not an option. So unfortunate. Have you ever done some type of random raid leading of an N tier cutting edge guild? Yeah, I've done it a few times. I actually like fully raid led and played for a team in Castle Nathria, slightly tilted, and then I helped another guild as well. And then there was one other tier where I got a DM on Twitter and it was like, yo, our raid leader, we're like, we could get Hall of Fame. I don't know if it was Hall of Fame or like getting cutting edge. I don't think it was at the end of a patch though. It was basically like, hey, our raid leader had like a death in his family and we don't have a raid leader tonight. Can you show up? And I just fucking pulled up. I don't remember if we killed the boss or not. Max, thoughts on the current difficulty of this raid tier? I feel like Turbo Boost and Rep Buff has made this raid a lot easier. I have not watched a clear of this raid in a very long time. I usually don't do later farm because my job isn't relevant for it, and it makes me want to die. So I don't even know, but I assume it's crazy. You know what? I'm not even going to have you guys tell me. I'm just going to watch one of my guild's clears. Let's just watch a fired up VOD here. Now, keep in mind, none of these are our actual... There's probably way faster kills, because none of these are our actual strongest characters. Our average eye level is probably a lot lower than a lot of other guilds, because we're gearing up a million characters, not just slamming our mains. So maybe another guild is better to watch, actually. But I'm just going to use ours as an example. We still have really good players, so it's possible we still do more damn. Double raid, very exciting. Okay, this was a raid yesterday. What's some bosses I haven't seen in a while? Okay, so that's Gallywix. We can watch that one, but I want to see a few other bosses first. So what bosses do they do? Do they do the last 6? Do they do last 2? Okay, Muggsy. I want to see Muggsy. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of ults in here. Okay, that's fine. I want to see from the pull. Okay, so on progression, in the first phase, we... Oh, are we 3 healing? Oh, shit. Okay. Max, people are pushing Muggsy into P3 at 3 minutes now with a 3 heal strat. You're going to have to take my word for this, but there was a long talk in progression before we killed Muggsy one morning where I was heavily trying to convince if we could get the numbers to work, I wanted to like 2 or 3 heal just to like push a couple of phases earlier, but it didn't work out because you lose so much damage during the jail phase specifically. We just didn't have enough gear to do it, but like there was definitely some thought in progression to like doing something completely absurd to try to push it early just because the last phase healing requirement was just so insane. Okay. So we're pushing out of the first phase at... God, Evoker's good, huh? At 70%. Do they 2-phase? You can't 2-phase it, right? Can you 2-phase it? They're not... I mean, they already lusted, so no way. You phase before the second jail spawn. Oh, okay. So you comfortably 3-phase it, but you push it in the 4th phase so you don't have to deal with the next jails. That's cool. Okay, so obviously they're going to fall off a little bit. Okay, let me see the next phase transition. Okay, so you go to Crawler Mine phase number 2. Oh, you only get 5 mines ever, not 6 in P1? Oh, this is going to answer one of my long wanted to know progression answers. In the last phase of Muggsy, is it always a extension of what you already done, or is it hard coded to be 6 mines and 5 jails? Right? Because you're pushing before you ever get 4 jails in P1. So does it still give you 5 jails in the last phase? Or no, it's not 5. It's 4. It's 4. I'm so stupid. It's not 5 jails. Yeah, I mean 4. Yeah, it's hard coded to give you 4. Yeah, that's what I assumed. Okay. Okay, they do the second soak in the middle. Makes sense. Oh, they're like pushing. Oh, they're pushing before, not even before second jail spawn. You're pushing before second phase even begins. Or the second jail phase even begins. That is nice. Dude, the ticks on the raid are like absolute piss now. Yeah, you just take no residual damage. That's crazy. Assuming they don't wipe here. Let's see. Boss is at 6% during this. Oh, you just kite mines now, too? You don't even have to pop those last 2? That goes hard. Love that. Okay, so the boss, so Muggsy dies in 5.5 minutes with like a alt run. We could probably shave maybe like 20, 30 seconds off of this with an optimized comp and better like people on their mains. That's fucking insane. I mean, they nerfed the boss a lot too, but yeah, okay, so I want to see Galley now. How does P1 look like? Oh, it's going to be hard to tell because we have a buyer. Oh, you delay the kick? Okay, interesting. Does the boss phase at a hard percentage or when the phase is over? Oh, they wiped. Fastest galley is like 611. Are you wiping here? Not wiping? Fastest galley is 611. So right now it's just dead right at this point. That's insane. Nice. Okay, so that's what I assumed. Pretty crazy. I mean, that's a good thing, right? I don't know exactly how easy it should be, but with how hard the bosses are initially, I think it makes sense for accessibility that these bosses are possible for people. Obviously, you don't want them to be like too easy to where the achievement means nothing, but yeah. I mean, turbo boosting and I mean, I guess the question has to be asked, but I feel like I ask this every tier, but this tier I really mean it. Is this going to be the easiest cutting edge to get? I feel like the answer might be yes, and I'll give you 2 reasons why this would be different than any normal patch. Number 1, turbo boosting exists. Like the whole, like the bosses have been nerfed. Bosses get nerfed every tier. Like some of the hardest bosses ever, like Jailer ended up being like one of the easiest cutting edges ever, and it was like extremely hard, and it's just because they just actually nerfed it an insane amount of times. So the other thing this tier is like it has a second to last boss, but it doesn't really have a last boss in terms of difficulty. So it that alone is makes it basically a 7 boss raid. Like once you get past Muggsy, it's just dead. Max, do you fear Method more than Echo next race? I don't fear anybody. Except for Grimace, the purple McDonald's guy. One Arm Bandit is still farming civilian guilds. Yeah, One Arm Bandit, just one of the most low-key hard bosses of all time. Never have people been tricked more than Echo and us both killing that boss in like 50 pulls, and then the entire community being like, oh, so this raid's easy then, or this boss is easy then, because like, I mean, it's just statistically no other boss like that, where basically every other guild, including the very, very good ones in the top 10 world that don't day raid, and basically every other guild for over a month took double the amount of pulls to kill that boss, and in the most frustrating fashion, because almost all of them had a low wipe, and then just wiped for like 60 more pulls. It's just one of those bosses. It's so weird. I still really wonder why that is. I think the best explanation I've been given is Bandit requires specifically like classes that, one, are not super often you have a bunch of them in your guild. So you basically the argument is there's more people in your guild playing alts. Like basically everything's been good for the past couple of years and they haven't really made a lot of niche fights. And then in this tier, they wanted a bunch of dot classes and like at least early they wanted a bunch of Windwalker monks. But like who the fuck has multiple good Windwalker monks? Like maybe like our guild and that's it. Like who has like 3 monks that are actually top tier? Like I think there might only be like 1 guild in the world, maybe 2 that I don't know about, you know? And then like who has the ability to run 3 or 4 shadow priests and they're not alts. They're like good mains. That's fucking no way, you know? So like people end up running 4 shadow priests, so you see their comp and you're like, they have the same thing you had, and it's like, no you don't, because we had like 4 mains
or main quality players playing Shadow Priest, and you had 3 alts, and like when people start playing alts, they're a lot worse, you know, a lot of times. So I think that's the biggest difference. Do you think a guild that has just killed one-armed bandit last night has a chance of getting cutting edge this season? Yeah, right? That means you have like a little over a month to kill Muggsy, and then you're chilling. I definitely, right? Max Warlocks and Dev Evokers carry one-armed bandit. Oh, interesting. So in progression, I mean, so first of all, you could say the same thing, right? So in progression, it was Shadow Priest because they lived longer, but now that they don't, you want more instant damage, which has always been Destro, and then it wasn't actually Evoker in progression. Evoker was fine in progression. It was more Evoker after the buff. But yeah, now it's about killing them instantly so you don't get their extra cast to go off. Do you want to know what the weirdest part about One Arm Bandit was, too? So on One Arm Bandit, you take an insane amount of damage from... let me actually show you this. So, Liquid One-Armed Bandit. I'm sure maybe some of you guys know this, but some of you don't. Let me see if I can find it on anyone's UI. Okay, so when these ads come down, do you guys see this 2 stack on Yips and this 1 stack on Rivens here? That is these guys, these little ads casting Electric Blast. All right, so this makes your raid take a shit ton of damage, and if it stacks up extra on one player, it like does way more. So you want to only chain 1 stacks. Now this is threat based, and it will just cast on the same person over and over again. So what we were doing in progression to make this not shit on our raid permanently, because our ads lived a lot longer than your ads do now, I'm sure, is we had monks taunting off every other cast. So it was rotating between monks having a stack and whoever they initially had threat on, because if the monk isn't on that target, it's just going to go to someone else, and then we killed them before their 4th cast. Yips here has it go off because we actually had to sit Trill because he was having some health problems, and we brought someone else in instead of him. Otherwise, he would have been in for this. And so we lost our 3rd taunt, so that's why we had some stacks on our kill. But isn't that a fucking weird thing to have on a boss fight? And then on top of that, we were actually able to do this. In your guilds, when you guys killed this boss, did you guys talk about having a taunt assignment for each one of these ads for your melee? Probably not. And because it wasn't relevant at that time, oh, they changed it so you don't have to. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if they changed it or not, but like, let's imagine a scenario where you did have to do that, where you had to tell a couple of your melee at a not initially, not on cooldown, at a specific time twice. You had to taunt and add every ad phase on top of this boss already. Do you guys think that would have gone well? In general, it's a really weird assignment. It's like a really weird assignment. Like, it's just not one you are normally used to, you know? People will taunt the boss on accident a few times, yeah, but like, I bet they'd get their taunts off, but the Coggy load diff would mean maybe they're not getting as many coin buffs, or they're getting run over by coins, or they are out of position for the baits of the coins because you're just asking a lot more of them, you know? It's just a really weird assignment. Stuff like that. But that's something you can ask Melee in this guild to do, and like they'll never fuck it up. And they can easily handle it. And that's a lot of other guilds would just be like, bro, I'm just trying to play WoW on a Friday night, man. Like, what are you fucking telling me to do right now? Shut up. I'm muting you. Do not tell me to ever do that again. Wait, could taunt with boss 2, boss 3, boss 4 macros since assistant are always the same? Oh, we didn't do that. We, I mean, I don't exactly know if they focused it every time or just made their way over to kick it. They're all melee and they were monks. Or not kick, sorry, for provoke. I'm sure it was like a focus provoke or just mouse over or something, but we did not do Yeah, that would have made... Oh, you guys didn't do it either. Yeah, that would have made it a lot easier. Okay, Zerwo, do you have any other thoughts? Like, why this would be the case? Oh, Zevi said we did do the boss 2, 3, 4 thing. All right, I fucking lied. I lied, and I'm proud of it. I don't give a fuck. Okay. The... Okay, either of you. Do either of you... Both of your names start with an X. Do you have any thoughts as to why this is the first boss, to my knowledge, in the history since I've been doing the race, where both of our guilds killed a boss in 50-ish pulls, 50, 60 pulls, and every single guild, even the really, really good ones that raid lower hours, and even now into farm, take like bare minimum 100? Like, why this boss? Like, what about this boss were we super fast at it? And by the way, we were fast at it now relatively, but when we killed this boss, I was in the Shadow Realm. And as far as I can tell, every other guild in the top 10 also was in the Shadow Realm when this boss died, because it was one of those bosses that you killed, but you felt like you should have killed it a lot earlier, but all of us were wrong, and that wasn't actually true. It's just really hard. I have no idea. Like, I guess one thing is one... But okay, you could say RNG, but like we have the RNG too. Like some pulls you would have ads on the opposite side. I don't get it. Hot take, but I wish they did more DPS off-tank style things for raid fights. I think stuff like that's kind of fun. The issue is that tanking is so basic, like as far as what they can do to challenge you, that anytime you're like introducing off-tank stuff, the thought process could be, couldn't we make this an actual tank mechanic because we have 2 tanks in a raid, and a lot of fights end up just being taunt at a certain amount of stacks, and you'd rather use that line of thinking to challenge those players anyway. But I do think stuff like that kind of happens if you think about it. Like on fights where there's 3 big meteors that have to be soaked or something, and it gives you a huge dot when you soak it. That's like what modern off-tanking is. Really, it's like you can choose a few players to soak something that will make them take a lot of damage for a lot of time. Like, there's a lot of examples of that in the past. Actually, there isn't. Not big ones. It's more like it's more like Rashok. Like Rashok, you have a rotation of people that want to soak those things, but at specific hard parts of the fight, you wanted like Dev Evokers or Warlocks to soak the late of the fight Rashok soaks, and they would have Renewing Blaze and Warlock Personals, and like that's how you would live. That's like as close to what modern off-tanking is. I think I again think this boss's challenge was so wrong again. It should be a very hard boss DPS check in P2 instead of this ad fiesta. I would have liked that more, I think. I think it was just a week 2 diff, right? Just a week 2 diffy. If we did this boss in week 1, if like Styx was a normal 4th boss and each of us had like a day or 2 on One Arm Bandit, I think this boss would have been insane. Like, because you think about it, like, you're thinking about the last phase DPS check. Like, the last phase DPS check still would have been piss in week 1. But, bro, the boss would have been so much higher. Like, or getting into P2 would be so much harder. Like, the P1 to P... Or week 1 to week 2 difference, these ads would have had so much... Like, would have been so much healthier. And then you'd lose so much boss damage because of that. But also, the ads are infinitely more deadly. Like, there's 6 times in P1 where it's just way fucking harder than it was in week 2. I think that would have been really hard. I also think it's really interesting, this raid, that they made 2 bosses. I know I talked about this with Roger, that have execute phases, which again, very, very rare. Really rare. Like, it's been years and years and years since a boss has had like you get this boss to 30% and then it starts like a dedicated timed execute phase and this boss has to die in that amount of time or you die. And then they did it in 2 bosses in a row and they were both at the end of the raid and neither of them was like you needed to stack this execute class. Bro, if they made this kind of fight, like back in Legion, back in BFA, you would have had like fucking 4 Arms Warriors in the raid. It would have been like the only way to kill the fight. Maybe it was just a week 2 diff. I don't know. And on Muggsy, it was more jails just being a problem. But maybe that's a week 2 diff, right? If you're trying to kill us in week 1, like maybe... Actually, I don't know. I still think you'd be griefing by running warriors in week 1. I think your raid comp would have been egregiously dot classes in P1 to even, or in week 1 to even have a chance of killing the ads. Would we have been able to run that? What would your comp on this have been in week 1? Isn't there like a Wowhead raid comp thing? Where would this be? Does anyone know where this is? I know it's a thing. Character planner, raid planner, where is it? Guides? No, someone will know. Someone will know before I can find it. There's a max roll 1 smile. Fuck yeah. Tools in the middle. Oh, raid composition. It's right there. Okay, cool. So what did we end up running? We ran prop paladin, warrior, right? Probably still do that. Let's see if I can even remember what our comp was. This will be fun. Healers, disc. I think we ran a resto druid. Ran a Mistweaver monk. I don't remember how many healers we ran. I think it was 3. I'm going to keep it at that. I'm also just, this is in the wrong group, W. I think it was 3. And then, what did we play? We had Enhanced Shaman, Impact was in. We had an insane amount of Windwalkers. I think Trill, or we talked about it earlier, Trill got sat for, he had like some medical stuff. Bunch of Shadow Priests, I think 3. Did we play all 3 locks? Yes, because we brought in Splat once Trill had to go out, so 3 Warlocks. They were Affliction, I think. I think 1 was Destro, maybe? Maybe 2 were Destro. I know THD stayed Affliction. Helped with boss damage in P1. We had a Hunter. Mark was the guy. We had Fire Mage. I don't remember how many Fire Mages exactly. Let me just think of raid buffs now. What are we missing? Oh, Demon Hunter. What else am I missing? I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I think this is one of those fights we sat Rogue for because Rogue... this was one of the fights, I think, where the Rogue debuff actually didn't do anything. Oh, yeah, we brought Evoker. And one other class. All right, I give up. Who was it? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, what did I miss? We did play Rogue. Wait, was this... This was a fight where Rogue worked. What boss am I thinking of where Rogue didn't do anything? And we sat Rogue. Oh, yeah, it was Styx. I'm fucking stupid. Okay, so I should have done that. Whatever. Okay. So what would have changed in week 1? So week 1, you have... Actually, I can just find out how much less gear. Warcraft logs. Okay, ain't no way you're just loading like this. Did I spell it wrong? Are we going to warcraftlogs.com? Hello? Is it down? Hello? All right, try again. Let's click on it from Google, I guess. It is down. Okay, the reason I was going to do this is I was going to see what our eye level was in week 1 versus week 2. I was going to look at our late Sprocketmonger wipes versus like one-arm bandit kill, basically. I don't know what the answer to that is. Were we able to craft stuff yet, or was it the day after? I remember we sent all of our crafts, and the day after we're like, haha, here's a free spark, and it like fucked over, I think both of our guilds. I think Echo got fucked over too. I don't remember, but it's a lot more. Let's just assume it's like, wait, like 3 eye level maybe? Maybe 3 eye level. Max, you killed Sprocket at 659.8 and one-arm bandit. Nah, not killed Sprocket. Can you give me, I was going to say killing Styx. This is gonna be. Oh, sorry. This is gonna be impossible to know because we saved a ton of our crests and crafts week 1. But like in the scenario where we actually tried to pull and kill one-armed bandit, we would have had to have sent them, which means we would have been closer to the week 2 eye level anyway. So whatever. Let's just say like a couple eye levels, whatever. Right? Some vault stuff. I think you still need a BM Hunter to do coins. Although, if BM Hunter's damage wasn't good enough, you could definitely have Fire Mages do coins as a group. We were doing that initially in progression, and there was a couple pulls where Mark died. Obviously not his fault. Mark's a fucking beast. But where we had to like have the mages back up his job, and we like progressed pretty far in the fight. And that's what they were doing on PTR as well. So I think that would have been fine. Because like Fire Mage ended up being like pretty value. But like you're just going to have to lose some damage to gain add damage. Like I'm wondering. So fire was pretty good for ignite. It spread to the 2 closest ones, but I wonder what their damage was. Oh man, I need to go to Warcraft logs to find this. I mean, do you sit Windwalker? But Windwalker was just so much boss damage though. But maybe you're right. Like maybe you just have to make a boss damage sacrifice for Chad, is there a place I can watch Mark play as a hunter main? I'd love to learn from him. Nope, Mark is an absolute beast, but he's a man of mystery. You'll never see him. Warcraft logs is up, but loading slow. All right, whatever you say, buddy. Okay, I did all of this just to realize I think you would have basically not been able to make any changes. Okay, here's a question. We swapped out Trill for Splat because Trill couldn't raid for a little bit. I wonder, I remember at the time, I was thinking that this sucks, but it was purely because you're just taking someone out who's seen all of progression for someone who's seen very little. And it's just one of those bosses, right? Where relearning's real. But like if you were to remove the experience factor, even in that week, was having an extra lock just better than another Windwalker? And if that's the case, you would have sat Windwalker for oh man. So my mind is telling me 4th Shadow Priest, but it could be 4th Shadow, 3rd Fire, or 4th Warlock. But do we have that in our guild? Who would have played these things? Let me look at our... So I believe... I could be wrong. I think we were fresh out of Warlocks. Think these were all of the Warlocks we had this tier. I mean, we have more people in the guild who can play Warlock, but like actually had gear, I don't believe so. 4th Priest would have had to have been Kingfly. And I don't think he prepped Priest. He prepped Hunter this tier. But he could have maybe geared one a Mythic Plus over a few days if we killed Styx fast. Wolf Disco didn't have one. Wolf Disco is melee for us. I mean, there's multiple other people who could play it, just don't have it geared or ready. So would you have just brought a second Dev Evoker? Because we could have. I think that's probably what you would have done. But again, I want to go to Warcraft logs to see actually how much. I want to see how much Dev Evoker was doing to the ads, like before the buff in progression. Can Nick play Shadow? Yeah, Nick can play Shadow, but then you don't have a Druid buff. That's a interesting maneuver. Why no DK? Oh, you know the answer to that. But actually, wasn't DK ended up being like pretty good for this boss, but I actually don't know. I don't know if it was better than anything. Like, for example, like, could have Unholy been better with week 1 ad health than Windwalker? And maybe, like, basically, how much does this boss become about needing damage to where you sit Rogue buff here? Because I think Rogue is probably coming out, too. I think Rogue's coming out. Oh, yeah, so Zevi had his Druid prepped. He goes Druid. We send Nick Shadow. Kingfly Shadow. Just PI the whole raid. I feel like there's a version of Frost DK where it was meta. Like if you were to transport Season 1 Frost DK into Season 2, I feel like Frost DK would be crazy for these ad sets. But it'd be, actually, it isn't just a worse Shadow Priest where like every 2 minutes with Breath it would kill ads, but Shadow would just do it better. And then outside of Breath, Shadow would be way better. So it's just a worse Shadow Priest. Interesting fight. They really haven't had one of these in a long time. Devastation Evoker. That's the one thing we had another one of. Dude, this raid is so interesting. It made you... Like, the whole thing where I just instantly went like, oh yeah, Zedevi had a Druid prepped. We'll send Nick Shadow. Like, Nick playing Moonkin on sticks, I think for the first time... having multiple healers play Windwalker... This tier was the most healer DPS multiclassing, like they multiclass DPS ever, and it is going to change my perspective in the future about what kind of class coverage we have. The only problem is I've run into this before where having healers prepped as potentially playing DPS is weird for them. Like I know they've had some issues like with their role in the guild, like. And they get like passed up on loot because you don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. Like if you could be a DPS or a healer, you're not going to get an int weapon, right? Or you could be like Zevi and just fucking just craft a fucking one-hander. You guys know that happened. Obviously, he's here right now too, but do you guys know that we had, it was like, I think it was like pretty early in week 1, Zevi just crafted a fucking Windwalker weapon as a Mistweaver monk. Like before he was planning on playing Windwalker at all. That's fucking sick. We tried to get Blizzard to help us out too. They were not budging. Like we were like, Blizzard, please look at this ticket number, and they basically responded with, bro, like we can't do that. Like you fucking crafted an agi weapon, man. Okay. Fuck. Another question. When is the next tier that Shadow is going to be as good as it was this tier? Which, it wasn't 4 on every boss, but... Sorry, when was the last tier that you played 2 Shadow Priests? When was the last raid you played 1 Shadow Priest for the entire raid? It's been a long time. We ran a couple on some last bosses, but for the entire raid, it's been a very, very long time. Like, basically, I think Eternal Palace. So forget running one the whole raid, just like stacking multiple. I mean, I guess the answer to that is how many more niche dot fights is Blizzard going to make? After this tier, I could see it because this tier seemed so intentional that they made weird fights, like damage wise. Just, it was so obviously a point of emphasis for them. It was probably on a fucking dry erase board somewhere. That why would they move off of it? Was it a failure? I don't think so. It was definitely, I don't think One Arm Bandit was a very well liked boss, but it's hard to tell if that would be the reason why. It's just a RNG boss that makes you really mad when you kill it somehow. Wasn't Shadow sick for Restless Cabal? Bro, ain't no way you're fucking talking about Restless Cabal right now. There's no way.
wasn't Shadow like non-existent in season 1 of Shadowlands? Shadow was like pretty not good for a few years, and in my opinion, it was because of PI. Now you might be thinking like that's crazy because like the reason they have been good is because of PI. I think that was a lot in dungeons, but like the reality is, if Shadow is anywhere close to being like tuned well, like relevant at the high level of damage, they were just extra good because if you added the damage they were gaining from giving someone else PI, they were at the top. And I think Blizzard knew that, hopefully, because that's reality. And they were scared of making them strong in raid because, well, number one, there wasn't any dot fights. That kind of hurt them. But like they're scared of making them strong in raid because then they would just be like Turbo Biss all the time. And because of that, they were just kind of nerfed because of it. PI, dude, PI is caused so much negative interactions in this game. Actually, it's like determined Mythic Plus comps. It's gotten multiple classes nerfed that were the best class at the time, but mainly because they were getting PI juiced, and then they got their class nerfed because of getting PI, and because of the nerf, they also lost PI. So they went from like the top to like, I mean, let's be real, it wasn't really that bad. They went from top to like mid, but it's 2025. If your class is mid, it's bad, you know. So, that was bad, and then I think it also like hurt their group viability. I think the only person, like the only class that is universally benefited from PI existing in the game, the only spec of Priest is like the healer specs, because it's just like an extra bonus that your healer specs bring, and it's always something we talked about going into a tier of like, do we have enough PIs? Also, side note, it's super annoying to test PI going into a tier because all of the spreadsheets are wrong, but at least they're like some form of information, where basically the only other way to do any kind of realistic PI testing going into a raid is to like natty test it, like dummy testing with PI, without PI, general numbers, but it's not super accurate. And then it always just goes into progression, and Warlocks want it, and Dev Evokers are going to cry if they don't get it. Fire Mage has benefited the most from PI overall. Maybe in dungeons. I mean, in raids they get it sometimes too, but it's been spread out a little bit more in raids. Like for a while there, it looked like Unholy was like the biggest benefit from PI. Bro, PI was so good for Unholy that it was a DPS gain for your raid to actually let your healer priest's PI sit on cooldown for an entire minute just to give it to the Unholy DK at 3 minute again, rather than getting like multiple extra uses. That's crazy. Don't y'all just PI fired up for the last 5 years because he's the GOAT? I don't think he's always gotten PI. He definitely gets it a lot, though. But y'all glaze too much. Fired up's just a dude. He's just a dude in this world. What in the world? What fake raid comp is this made for? For Shadow Priest? Dude, what would a raid comp look like for next tier right now? Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to make this accurately because I haven't paid attention to farm at all, but I know... Actually, no, I shouldn't say anything. Because I don't even know. I could say something. I'm just not going to. Just for... I mean, I don't even know why I wouldn't, but I'm just not going to. Especially healer stuff. I don't want to be killed by healers. Do you think they give DK a raid buff after this tier? I think it's more than overdue. After this tier, and also after Dratnos talked about it. Bro, Dratnos makes a video. Dratnos 11 rants. Okay? Listen to this shit.
Well, I think here about things that, I guess from a glass half full perspective, a lot of these would be the positive aggro on some of these. So let's start off with the first one. The first thing I want to complain about is aggro.
What happens 1 week later? Blizzard buffs tank threat by 16.5%. Clout. That's called clout, boys. And then what happens after this? Here we go. What the fifth thing he's talked about? All right, what about this?
In that way. Up next, the Death Knight raid buff situation. Why doesn't Death Knight have a raid buff? Well, maybe it's because Death Grip is a really powerful effect that we consider to be basically the Death Knight raid buff. Okay, if that's the case, why don't we design any fights where Death Grip is good?
Facts, right? Facts. Max, in Mythic Plus, that aggro buff is not too good because the issue mainly with aggro is that it resets. Yeah, I mean, that's a separate problem, though, so it doesn't hurt, right? There is also an issue in Mythic Plus where you're doing big dam as a tank, and then you lose aggro, like, late into a pull. That's dumb. I literally swapped mid-tier because of how useless DK was this tier to Windwalker. Damn, you swapped to a class that fell off. That sucks. Tell Dranos to talk about how dog parry is. Yeah, I've heard some people say... I think they've answered the question before of, like, why is parry still in the game? And the answer is they want, like, some positionals to matter, but they don't want it to be super punishing. My issue with parries is that it's more punishing for some classes than others. So first of all, anytime there's a big mob that you can't get behind, parry sucks in general, but they can usually design around that, and they do. But my thing is, like, there's some classes that can get parried and it just doesn't matter. Like, it's designed well to not matter. And then there's some classes that have, like, their mastery break or their like, Colossus smash gets parried and just doesn't apply and goes on cooldown. Like, those interactions are certainly not intended. To where I think parrying should change from... Like, I think if you just made this one change right now, where instead of parrying, just not doing anything at all, it can still say parry, but it will still apply debuffs, and it will just do, like, 85% reduced damage or, like, 90% reduced damage. But instead of fully immuning it and removing debuffs and stuff, I think would be better. Make range spells resist. Yeah, that would be good. Did they fix the uber bad parries? Can you not get Colossus Smash parried anymore? Is Colossus Smash even still a button? They already fixed Kingsbane and Colossus Smash not get parried. Did they fix Essence Break? No. Damn, all right. Get to complaining, Demon Hunters. I know you guys are good at it. All right. Let's see what else we got going on here. I feel like this is so... Okay, how good is this new Onyx Amulet, but it's a belt in patch 11.1.7? Titanic in name, but not in power. Yeah, like, the thing is, this shit can be trash, like, all the way until it comes out, and then it just gets buffed real quick, and then it's good, you know? I think, like, worrying about its power level isn't super important. Like, I think it's willing to bet they're going to make it to where you want this to be equipped. And if the patch release and that's not true, they're going to buff it to where you equip it. The question is whether you're going to equip it next patch, but that shouldn't change any decision you make currently, so it doesn't matter. Without that post, it would stay bad. Actually, kind of true. Dude, I wish we could do some content. Like, we try to do a raid clear with everyone using the button assistant. The only problem is it doesn't work for tanks and healers, right? Like, you just can't heal with this thing. So, for DPS, it'd be interesting, maybe. Someone tested it, and it was like a 30% DPS loss. I mean, isn't that what it's supposed to be? Because, like, don't you get like a 30% GCD penalty or something? So If it's only a 30% DPS loss, that means the rotation that it has you do is a lot better than I thought it would be. Yeah, I mean, the one button rotation is definitely not going to be like BIS for anyone unless you're, like I said, there was someone who in a potty tea recently was talking about how they had someone like trying to raid lead their raids, and they were actually like, when you looked at Warcraft logs, they were just pressing Ice Lance like 90% of the time, whether it was buffed or not. Basically just like, I'm going to spam this one button if I need to talk and I can't think about what I'm doing because I'm like coggy loaded. Bro, for players like that, this one button, you just replace that Ice Lance that you're spamming with the one button assistant, and your damage is going to go way up. So it's going to help the super stinkers for sure. I also wonder if this one button raid rotation in a way is going to make them better at fixing like minor issues in rotations in general. Like I think a lot of times they make something, then they see how the community interacts with it, and then they complain. But if they have to actually design a one button rotation, or just the Hakili thing in general, forget the one button rotation, just like actually advising people on what to do, you would naturally have to make yourself better acquainted with like what you would actually want to press as Blizzard. And I don't know how like locked the fuck in they are at that, because there's so many specs, right? I know they know a lot of it. Like I know a few class designers, and they fucking blast, right? Like the class that they're playing, they do really good damage. They know what they're doing, so they could tell you probably right now off rip like what the priority system is and stuff like that. But the thing is those people don't play every class in the game, right? Just like a lot of you don't probably in their spare time. So and they don't have as many class designers as they have specs, so it'd be hard to imagine that would all be done really well. I don't see why it's getting so much hate, and most people won't use it, so just let those who need it. I've heard a few credible arguments as to why it could potentially be bad. But largely, a lot of the hate is just gatekeeping nonsense. It's just people being mad at something. They're just like mad at the world. That's a lot of the negative criticism. Or it's like completely misguided. They're like, dude, I'm going to have absolute idiots in my content now. I'm like, dude, this is not going to affect that at all. It's just complete nonsense. Like it's just going to make really, really bad players who want to use this a little bit better. If you have a stinker in your content with this existing, they'll be less likely for you to notice them being bad. They'll probably just be better if they're really bad. For accessibility, it's amazing, like people with disabilities. But the one downside I can kind of see is if you like trying to get better at the game, you're just not very good at it, right? And maybe someone in your raid is like, hey, bro, hey, dude, why don't you try that little one button rotation, little guy? And then you try it, and you do like 50% more damage. I think that sucks, because now that player feels like they have to just do this one button thing instead of actually trying to play the game, which is fun, because they feel like they want to help their friends or whatever. Like that's a negative interaction I could see existing. But pretty much everything besides that I think is like universally good, and most of the complaints I've seen are from the usual suspects you would imagine it coming from, and it's either misguided or just like intentionally obtuse. Like they're just mad at the world. What is it? I'm not sure that's true. I think that it may help them push to learn their rotation more. I think not the one button thing specifically, because that's just too easy of an option to remove all having to think and stuff like that. Because like this game's really hard, right? The reason people aren't good at it is because there's just too much going on. So you're just removing some things going on so they'll be better at it. But I think that's true of the Hakili thing. I think the Hakili thing in the game is like 100% really fucking good. Like even if you don't want to do the one button thing and you're just playing WoW, or you're like really new to a class, if it's made even remotely well, and I know some of them are and some of them aren't, like that's so easily going to like help you learn how your class rotation works as a newer player. Especially when you guys like detach yourself from this game for a second and just remember like people are logging into this game and seeing a spell book at max level with like 20 buttons in it after you copy a build. Like you're just actually so confused, it's insane. Like the Hakili thing alone is sick, but that has nothing to do with the one button rotation. That I think the one button rotation has potential downsides. I think the Hakili thing being built in the game is exclusively good. I cannot even imagine an argument that would be negative to that. It's still a worse version of Hakili from what I've seen. Oh, yeah. I think every add-on that they try to build into this game will initially be a worse version of what those people have made. You're talking about these people who have made these add-ons have been making them for 15 years or more in some cases. And they're really smart. And for some of them, it's literally their job. Like the support, either the patrons or like their ad support they get from some of these sites is part of or all of their income. So it's been this really smart person's main focus for 15 years. Blizzard assigning probably a very small amount of people to replicate in a very short amount of time the same thing and expecting it to be not only as good but better is extremely not, that's just not going to happen. It's nonsense. And it's also really disrespectful to the people who make these add-ons to assume that they even would be able to do that. Like there's just no fucking way they make some shit like this from scratch without 15 years of feedback and iterations to go on. Like, obviously, it's going to be better. They should just hire the Hakili guy. That was my most recent feedback to them. Was, and I don't know if there's, like, some licensing issues with this or, like, some legal stuff that's weird, but, like, by far the fastest way to get this implemented, all of these things they want to do, is to, at the bare minimum, hire these people as consultants. Because, hey, if you're going to want to talk to anybody about trying to make this thing, it's probably going to be the person who's been troubleshooting it for the last 15 years. Or, that's the thing that I think is easy to do. And I told Ian to do that to his face when we had this interview with me and Dranos with him a few months ago. And, you know, but I don't see why you wouldn't just buy this thing from them. Like, I don't know if it's like made with different code. It's not, I'm sure it's a lot harder process to implement something into the full game for whatever reason. And I don't mean like they're a part of Blizzard now, but contract them to work with your team to put this in. I think that's going to be the most cost effective, the fastest way, and the highest quality way of trying to do all of this. But again, I don't really know from a business side how that would work. And if they're not doing that, which to me seems like the very, very obvious thing to do, there has to be a reason why they wouldn't do that.
Same reason they don't have more devs right now. HR said no. HR said no. No, I mean, as far as I know, they want more devs. The impression I am under is that it's extremely hard to find a good like game developer, especially one with like specific interest in or experience in your field. It's not a job a lot of people are doing out of college, and it is something that just requires a specific person with a specific love for the game that is just extremely hard to hire good people for. Like, basically, there's a major shortage of actual good employees you could find than wanting or the ability to spend money on it. It's because the pay is so bad. Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me, yeah. This playlist is so vibey, holy. Dude, my playlist is called Vibey Wibey. I'm not even making that up. You're so on point. There's a big difference between writing code that works versus writing readable code with good performance without any memory leaks or other issues. It might be a big risk to onboard someone from the outside. I understood all of that, by the way. I, too, write code. They don't need to buy the add-on. They can just take it. Add-ons have no copyright as far as I know. Yeah, that'll go over well. First of all, morally, I don't think they would ever do that. Like, I don't know about, like, the suits at Blizzard, but Ian, no way. And then the... Bro, could you imagine the community reaction to that? Holy shit. Why do you always have these cringe words? Natty, potty, vibey. Bro, are you... First of all, fucking have some fun. Second, mostly because I raid with people a bit younger than me and they say things that I don't understand and then I start saying them ironically and then it becomes unironic. It's a cycle that has never been proven wrong. It always happens. Someone that loves the game and really wants to work on it will accept any wage for the opportunity. And that's how you get exploited. And that's how the esports and game development industry has worked for a while. Yeah, I also doubt that's still true. That used to be true 100p. Definitely in esports too. I think I'd like to make games. I think it'd be fun. I would love to get into that. Like, I've had an opportunity that I can't talk about directly, just let's just say within the last couple years or something, where I've gotten the ability to, like, work with some people on a game. Not a game any of you guys know about or would know about, but, like, just getting to hear their leads talk about it and get feedback and take feedback. The entire process just sounded super interesting. I'm sure I saw like a glorified version of it where like I'm in a situation where all the stuff is really easy and there's probably a lot of like nuts and bolts and stuff that's really like hard, you know, just really hard and not fun. But I had a ton of fun in my small experience being able to do that. If I were to ever make my own game, I would just make something that would be fun for me, but I know that it would die and not enough people. Because, like, to make a successful game that makes money, you have to, like, attract a casual audience. 90x% of players are casual, right? I would just make, like, a game that has, like, really good gameplay, and then it just has extremely good and hard bosses that you have to do in a group that would be basically impossible to do solo, like with no friends. You'd have to have a group of people to play. And it would be made exclusively for that. That would be, I don't know what the group size would be, it doesn't matter. It could be small, big, both, I don't know. But yeah, that's what I would do. Because that's just what I find fun, right? But that game would die and I would go broke. That's okay. That's okay. We're all good. Jiggle physics. Yeah. Yeah. Dude, just imagine you make a great game you spent a ton of time on, and then like the internet discourse surrounding your game is like the worst people you've ever met being mad that like the girl character's boob isn't big enough. I said boob singular, you know, boobs. You get what I'm saying? Or like your game being fucking woke because it has like, you know, something that they don't agree with. Fuck yeah. You're like thinking about the sick game and you just have to deal with these absolute fucking idiots. That's got to be so demoralizing. Why are we hovering Wowhead? Are we expecting some news? No, we did the math earlier. We are to expect 11.2 content announcement on June 19th, 2025. That is to be expected. Oh, I guess someone could clip that in 5 seconds and they're going to assume I'm leaking it because I didn't see any of that stuff beforehand where I just simply repeated what they told us last time. Actually, that's not even true. Right? I totally forgot about this. The actual 11.1.0 content announcement, it was on November 13th. But it was just a totally different scenario. But for some reason, I feel confident that 11.2 will specifically be announced a couple days after 11.1.7 comes out. But I don't know. I think it's reasonable to expect that like when the 30-year anniversary announcement happened with the roadmap, which are two totally different things to right now, it is still true that we learned of the content, the name, the bosses and everything of 11.1 like a month before what would be like right now. Right? But so I guess it could come out within that month all the way up to this date, I suppose. So like it could come out this week. I mean, they usually do announcements for stuff like this on like Wednesdays and Thursdays, so it'd be like the next 2 days. Today is Wednesday. It is not Tuesday. Woo! I'm just an adult, man. You know what I mean? How many seasons do you expect this expansion? 3, right? I mean, I feel like the answer just has to be 3. Like, we're definitely getting another one. I guess can't say definitely, but like, let's just fucking assume we're getting another one. But then, like, the whole World Soul Saga, we're thinking we're getting quicker expansions. And if that's the case, they haven't even done the 4th major season in multiple expansions now. They're not going to start doing it now. So I think the answer is we're getting one more, and then we're probably getting the expansion after that. I bet no Faded either. They'll probably just do Remix. Well, I mean, I think they said they're doing Remix. Do you think we will see a new class in the next 2 expansions? I don't know. I'm just gonna do some shit in my head real quick. Holy fuck, there's a lot of WoW expansions. Okay, so maybe I missed one too. Okay, so Wrath, we're talking about classes. We got DK. In Mop, we got Monk. In Legion, we got DH. In BFA, we didn't get shit. In Shadowlands, we didn't get shit. In Dragonflight, we got Evoker. So Midnight. What's the last expansion called? Last ET. Dude, I'm gonna put that just so that person in chat earlier who was throwing a fit is just gonna hear me say that and be so upset. So I mean, yeah, fuck it. New class in Last ET. That would be the same distance from DH to Evoker. So if there's not one in Last Titan, I mean, there's definitely going to be one in Last Titan, right? Because they're going to want to hype that up as like the end of the World Soul Saga. It's going to be super epic, right? They're going to want people to be playing it anyway. They're going to new class that shit for sure. I think for Midnight, we maybe would have heard about it already. I mean, maybe no, because we've learned about housing, but that's like so specific. We would not have heard about it. I think it's unlikely in Midnight.
I don't know if there being housing in Midnight makes it any less likely, because the kind of people that would create a class versus the kind of people that would create housing are totally different people. But I just think they probably wouldn't want to. They're a business, right? They're trying to spread out what they can offer you over multiple expansions, not give you all in one of them, kind of thing. Dragons leaked way before it was announced. We just didn't believe the leaks. Well, yeah, of course you don't believe the leaks, because, like, dude, everyone does this. Like, there's just 1,000 leaks, and almost all of them are just fanfic made up. And then one of them ends up being right, or kind of right. And then someone just goes back and is like, bro, we should have known. It's like, no, we shouldn't have known. It's just like, it's like one piece of correct information in a sea of dog shit. Just absolute worthless fanfic. and it's like, there's no way. I mean, that's why leaks are kind of cool, because, like, usually things are leaked, but there's so many people just making it up. You never know, you know? Did Max react to the Haruma Red video today? Yo, oh, what? Come on, give me a good one. Give me a good one. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Top 10 most hated raid bosses in World of Warcraft. Oh, I didn't even watch the top 10 secret phases in WoW, because there are not even 10 secret phases. There just straight up is not that number of secret phases that exist in this game. So I was like, this is just a nonsense video. Like, we're just not even, I guess we're ranking them. And if you're ranking them, it's Kill Jaden, and it's not close as number 1 for me. Probably Gul'dan second, and then there's like a few others. I think here's my issue with people ranking Gul'dan's secret phase number 1 is it's such a bad phase. The only thing that's good about it is that Illidan shows up. That's it. That is it. And for some people that matters. For me, I don't care. So that's why it's not but it's just like, it's such a whatever phase. The Archimond Mythic phase is the coolest shit ever. It's a really well-made phase. It looks sick. It was a huge surprise when you got there. I don't know. I just think that one's the GOAT. Okay, top 10 most hated raid bosses in WoW. Let's do it. All right, let's think about it first, boys. What do we got? Top 10 most hated raid bosses in World of Warcraft. Now, keep in mind, he has a script writer, and I don't know. He's usually more classic-minded, but I don't know if he's going to mention more recent stuff. But I'm just going to go ahead and say my list is going to include everything from Mop onwards. I'm going to completely ignore anything from Classic to Wrath, and I'm just going to do it, and through Kata, I guess. Or no, I did play in Kata, so maybe we'll do Kata till now. And I won't even really bother ranking them. I'm just going to put them on the list, and they can be in any order. So let me think of recent bosses. SLG. I don't know if people hated SLG as much as it was like a problem with like top guilds. Like, as much as Stone Leech in general should be on this list, I don't even know if him or his scriptwriter are going to even know why it was bad. You know? And it also was nerfed and changed before a lot of people got to it. So I don't know if SLG will be on the list. I think Skarn, bro. It had very little to do with the actual boss of Skarn, but just everything involved with how Skarn played out. It's just like a really bad experience for a lot of people. That one I'm pretty sure about. Spine of Deathwing. Gonna put that on there. Brood Twister. Actually, I think it's unlikely to make the list, his list, but it would make my list. It would make my list, I think. Oh, Dark Animus. Yes. I'm going to maybe come back to Brood Twister. Oh, Echo of Neltharion. You know what? I'm going to say maybe Anduin, but Anduin wasn't even a really bad boss. It was just kind of hard. And it was hard in a very specific way and really unforgiving, really punishing. And more specifically, it killed a ton of guilds. And it was like one of the hardest heroic bosses of all time. And I feel like most players, that's the farthest they go. So like, if that. I don't know if Anduin deserves to be on this list, but if it's on there, I would get it. Ooh, Hellfire Assault. Good shout. Good shout. Good shout. Ooh, Eonar. Another terrible boss. I mean, these are terrible boss. I just don't know if people hated that. Like Hellfire Assault. Yeah, I mean, it was just really so annoying. Malagos for sure. I just didn't experience it, so to me it means nothing. Painsmith? There's a difference between a boss just being hard and a boss being hated. You can hate a boss because a boss was hard, but there are bosses that you just fucking everyone hated them. Not everyone hates a boss just because it's hard. Ooh, casuals will hate Eonar because it's even bad for transmog farms. Ooh, good shout. Or Shaw of Fear. Nah, not enough people. I'll put Stone Legion Generals on here. Fuck it. I mean, how do we have right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need to go get a snack. 1 second. All right, I'm back, and I have snacks. Fate Scribe? Did people really... I think people would have hated Fate Scribe if you had to do it natty, but because you just run in one direction, I feel like it was easy. Silken Court? True. True. So true. It was a hard boss, but... Senarth is a good shout. Well, my only issue here, are we making my list or our list?
Or are we trying to guess his list? Because it's probably impossible to do that, because I can tell you right now, 5 of the bosses are going to be ancient classic bosses that I've never heard of. So, like, we already lose that, so maybe we just do our own. Let's just do what we would say and see how many of them crack his list. You know what I mean? Tindril, because it was too difficult. I think it's worth talking about. I don't know if you're saying for him or for us, but most people don't make it to Mythic Tindril. You know? So their opinion of Tindril is going to be heroic. And he was a fine heroic boss, you know? Lords of Dread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have one more. I'll slam Lords of Dread, whatever. Alright, let's watch it.
Bosses in WoW are hated for being too long, or for just being impossible to speed up on reclips. Whatever the reason, there are plenty of fights that people hated, and in this list, we'll be listing them. And at number 10, we have Hellfire Assault from Hellfire Citadel in Warlords of Draenor.
This is a good
log
shout.
in, ready to raid, and what you get as your first boss in the final raid of the expansion, you get a Trash Gauntlet. Hellfire Assault isn't really a fight. It's a glorified escort mission where your raid has to babysit siege vehicles while waves of adds flood in from random doors. You can't burn it faster with better gear, and you can't pull off clever skips. At the start, the raid is tasked with defending Hellfire cannons, which must survive long enough to break down the gates of Hellfire Citadel. Throughout the fight, waves of Iron Horde adds will spawn from 4 preset locations. Each wave brings in different enemies, engineers that attempt to disable your cannons, siege vehicles that must be destroyed before
like that was their biggest failure. If you're gonna make a trash raid fight, you at least have to make it so over time when you start doing more and more damage, you can do the fight faster and faster and faster. It would be way less hated. Like, yeah, we're doing a trash fight, whatever. But if you just had more gear and you could find cool ways to go faster, it would still be interesting in some way. This fight just sucked.
And basic infantry to distract your raid and pressure healers. The goal is to kill these adds before they can either destroy your siege weapons or delay their advance. There is no traditional boss with health that you can burn down. Instead, your raid is constantly repositioning across a large battlefield to intercept enemies. Your raid is people checked out of Warlords early. And at number 9, we have Spoils of Pandaria from the Siege of Orgrimmar and Mist of Pandaria.
I completely disagree with this. Completely. So when we were getting ready to do this raid, I was like, bro, this is going to be the most trash fight of all time. This was like maybe the 3rd or 4th best fight in the raid. Like, Spoils was actually sick. You had full control over like where you wanted to go in the room. You could do the fight differently. We did do it a bunch of different ways. I could see someone being like, this wasn't my thing. It wasn't exactly my fight, but if you're like all players hated this, like I don't know, maybe it's like a transmog thing or something, but this was actually like a genuinely enjoyable progression boss. I completely disagree.
Spoils of Pandaria is another non-traditional boss fight. It's split into 2 rooms where your raid divides into 2 separate teams. Each team's responsible for opening crates to spawn enemies.
Wait a second. I'm having deja vu. I think he's made a video similar to this. But the video was titled Top 10 Worst Raid Bosses in World of Warcraft. And we reacted to it a few years ago. If you guys want to remember which one it is, it's the one where his number 1 was Siegecrafter Blackfuse. And I actually did like a meme clickbait face unintentionally. And I held that shit for a long time. And I screamed what at the top of my lungs. If you don't, Siegecrafter Blackfuse is like one of the best bosses of all time. It's like, if you're not including end bosses, it's top 5. If you're including end bosses, it's probably still top 20. And I'm wondering if he's going to put that in this video. Most hated and worst are not the same. But
every crate adds energy to a room-wide meter. The goal
I wonder
is
if that's
to
going to
fill
be
each
on here.
meter to the required energy amount by defeating enemies and using the machinery inside. But there's a catch. You can't just power through it. Going too fast might lock the fight, and going too slow can trigger an enrage.
That's not true.
There's no single boss to
Well,
focus
that's
on,
true.
just a sequence of small ad packs and mini bosses that come out of boxes. Most of them aren't particularly interesting or dangerous, but they come in overwhelming volume. The design forces coordination and pacing, but in the most repetitive way possible. Once you've done it once, you've seen everything the fight has to offer. Every pull basically plays out the same. You might notice a pattern with the bosses that are going to be on this list. Because of the energy requirements, every crate needed to be calculated. Small crates gave less energy, large ones gave more, and if you were too slow, the room would enrage. So every pull became about counting numbers, opening boxes in specific orders, and handling the resulting mobs efficiently.
This is like a transmog thing. I don't know.
That consistency made it one of the most tedious parts of Siege of Orgrimmar. Even when you outgeared the content, you couldn't really go that much faster.
This is a transmog thing.
You had to stop and wait for the right energy numbers on the other side. Every group that farmed this raid for months on end grew tired of this fight, as it wasn't really challenging. It was just something you had to do in order
Well, everyone got tired of every boss in this raid because the farm period was infinitely long. But that wasn't a spoils problem.
Boss. And at number 8, we have Malygos from the Eye of Eternity and Wrath of the Lich King. Malygos is the only boss in the Eye of Eternity raid.
Why does this boss suck, chat?
A single room encounter that attempts to deliver a cinematic climax. The fight is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 is fairly straightforward. The raid spreads out to avoid arcane breath while managing power sparks that float towards Malygos and increases damage if they reach him. Players have to intercept and kill these sparks to gain a temporary damage buff, all while dodging vortexes that throw players into the air and disrupt casting. Phase 2 transitions when Malygos hits 50% HP. He lifts off and summons platforms while summoning a swarm of Nexus Lords and Scions of Eternity. The Lords dive into platforms to attack players in melee, while the Scions fire dangerous range attacks. DPS must kill these adds quickly while also taking down the Scions that hover around the room.
Oh,
this part of the fight is more chaotic,
sucks.
requiring players to move from platform to platform to avoid damage and line of sight range mobs. Then comes Phase 3, the Dragon Riding phase. The room shatters and all of the players mount red drakes. Each Drake has a unique set of abilities unrelated to the player's class. DPS rotations are replaced by a 3-button combo system, where players spam 1-1-2 while building and maintaining combo points. Healers become limited to weak hots and damage mitigation abilities. It's no longer about how strong your character is, but how well you can manage a clunky, slow, and unfamiliar vehicle interface. Phase 1 and 2 are standard fare, with vortex knockups and power sparks that need to be managed carefully. But all that goes out the window in Phase 3. Your character's stats no longer matter. You're now pressing 1-1-2 on a dragon, hoping no one messes
Teemo
up the
Tendril.
The clunky vehicle mechanics combined with players having to reposition mid-air and track combo points
Teemo Tendril's crazy.
A disaster in pugs. One person lagging out, wipe. Someone not reading up on their new temporary UI, wipe. If you were a melee player, congrats, the one phase you got to shine.
But you can explain this in like 2 seconds, though, what you're supposed to do. People were just really bad.
Is over before the real DPS check begins. The Drakes don't scale with gear or class either. It's pure memory game muscle.
Okay, that sucks. That's stupid.
Which was punishing in early Wrath, and remained annoying even years later. A single missed heal or a stack drop on a Drake was often fatal. With so many players unused to vehicle mechanics, it became an infamous pug breaker. Malygos was innovative, but in the worst way. It took control away from the player and replaced it with a clumsy gimmick.
All right.
A spectacle.
All right, give me out of this ancient shit.
Worth it.
What's
fast,
next?
And the mechanics only got more grating over time. And at number 7, we have faction champions from the Trial of Crusade.
Oh, this is okay. So this is ancient, but I should have known. I don't know how many people actually typed this. I'm sure a few of you did. But this is I am old enough to hear many people complain about how bad this boss was.
Raid and Wrath.
The PvP boss or whatever.
Faction champions broke.
Also, I think this boss probably was
rule
just really
players
bad.
had come to expect from raid encounters up to that point, and not in a good way. Instead of fighting a
Can we skip this though? I think this is actually like when I saw Malygos, I'm like, all right, bro. This actually, I totally get it.
Skip it being a chore, and there's a reason they never did a PvP only style fight like this again. And at number 6, we have Dark Animus from the Throne of Thunder in Mist of Pandaria. Dark Animus is one of those
W us. I'm not completely qualified to comment on this because during this raid,
I went on vacation and then came back and it was dead. So we killed Primordius. I was like one of our guild's like potential tank people, in which I think you needed 3 for this fight. And then I just dipped on vacation, missed all of it, came back, it was dead, GG, move on to Iron Quan.
Bosses
It's
that
easy
didn't
W
just
for me
punish
right there.
mistakes, it punished even thinking about pulling wrong. When you walked into the room, it wasn't just the boss waiting. It was a grid of inactive golems. Each one requires a resource called anima to act.
My only kind of... So I did this boss a ton in farm, obviously. So I understand how it works. But I actually haven't heard a bunch of people saying that Dark Animus was terrible in guilds. It kind of was just like a really cool, unique... At least in 25-man. I can't speak about 10-man. 10-man maybe was cursed. But 25-man, like, was logical. It made sense. You had a smooth progression curve. It was just hard. But people will say, like, Dark Animus was, like, one of the best bosses of that raid. But maybe it's a 10-man, 25-man diff. I'm wondering what that'll be. Again, I wasn't there, but...
Activate. And the resource came from orbs that dropped from other golems when they die. The entire fight revolved around managing where the anima went, in what order golems...
Because the thing was like, yeah, you had to do math or whatever, but it wasn't RNG. You did the same thing every pull. Your individual job was to kill your mob at a certain time next to another mob.
Activated, and keeping the ones that shouldn't be active from waking up too early. The goal was to activate a precise chain of golems to feed anima into the boss, Dark Animus himself. But if you accidentally activated the wrong one, if your raid killed the wrong ad in the wrong spot, the anima would flow incorrectly and your raid would wipe, even before the boss became fully active. To beat it, groups had to plan the entire fight before even pulling. Tanks had to kite ads into exact positions so they would die in the right spot. DPS had to not kill certain enemies, just weaken them until they were needed. Healers had to be ready for burst damage incoming from enemies that weren't even part of the final boss yet. And everyone, DPS and even healers alike, had to tank an ad, because they would give each other a buff if they were too close to each other, which could just one-shot a tank if too many of them were bound up. Once the boss finally activated, you still had to deal with his real mechanics: explosive ruptures, stacking debuffs, and tank swaps.
That part of the fight was good, though.
But for most groups, the real boss fight wasn't Dark Animus himself. It was the first 90 seconds
I mean,
of
that phase was hard. It was just a good phase.
Fight, where one wrong move, or literally just walking over another
All right,
person's ad,
What's next?
meant starting over. And at number 5, we have Razorgore the Untamed from Blackwing Lair and Classic
some ancient
WoW.
shit.
Razorgore isn't just one of the most hated boss fights. He's also one of the weirdest.
People hated it so much, they made it again in Dragonflight.
When players walked into Blackwing Lair for the first time, they
Skip angle,
expected
everybody.
dragons, fire, and maybe some tricky mechanics. He
Skip
cleared
angle.
the eggs and got to kill the boss. He barely put up a fight. All the stress was in Phase 1, a fight remembered not for its challenge, but for how quickly it could fall apart. And at number 4, we have Galacras from the Siege of Orgrimmar in Mist of Pandaria.
I mean, definitely worse than Spoils. But I think it's a transmog angle because this boss was just so easy that it didn't matter. Like, for you to truly hate a boss, it has to be a terrible fight and also take you time. Just like no boss can be great if it's the best design ever and you one-shot it. No boss can be the worst if it is just unfun, but then you just kill it once and you move on, you know? I don't know. But I know it's annoying for transmog. That's why I'm thinking this is a transmog take.
Galacras is technically a dragon boss, but you don't actually fight the dragon until the last few minutes. Most of the encounter is spent dealing with waves of ads, tower control, and long stretches of doing the same thing over and over again. The fight starts on the beach outside the gates of Orgrimmar. Your raid is pinned down while Cork fight nerfed years later to allow players to solo the fight, so you could down it with only one cannon double tapping it instead of requiring both.
ENR better be on here. Fucking
and at
Galacras
number 3,
is on here.
we have Rygolon from Sapler of the First One.
Bro. What are we fucking doing right now? What are we fucking talking about right now? This is one of the best bosses ever. What could be the reasoning?
Let him cook? What could you be cooking? Is it like, okay, so I remember in Heroic, okay, there's one thing about Rygolon that was bad. If like you went in on Heroic and like your Moonkins just had like all their CDs up and just popped every single, what are they called, Quasars? Just by pressing a button. Like it could kind of fuck you up. But this is definitely a Heroic take. This is not a Mythic take. This is one of the best Mythic bosses ever. So it has to be a Heroic take. And I don't remember it being particularly crazy on Heroic. It was maybe a little annoying. It wasn't hard in splits. I remember that. Man, what is the take here?
Ones in Shadowlands. Rygolon is one of the most exhausting bosses in modern WoW. Not because of wild gimmicks or massive RP intros, but because it demanded perfect execution every single pull. The arena is a simple circular platform.
So does literally every, I mean, again, maybe on Heroic, if you're making that, that's, first of all, that's not true on Heroic. And if that was true on Heroic, that'd be bad. But perfect execution for a second to last boss on Mythic is what happens every raid, by the way. That is what Mythic raiding is at the end. That's the bit, right? But on Heroic, I could see that being an issue, feeling like you had to play perfect on Heroic. The only problem is that's not true. We did Rygolon in splits right when it came out with a bunch of people who've never seen it before, and we're killing it routinely over and over again and one-shotting it. It's not that more than half the raid was not us. It was other people that are seeing this for the first time, right? I don't know.
The boss doesn't have much, but the entire boss fight is spent reacting to everything he throws at you non-stop. He hits tanks with stacking debuffs that eventually force a swap.
It did hit
He
tanks
targets
hard.
random players with cosmic damage that leaves behind orbs. If these orbs aren't soaked properly, they explode and wipe the group. But soaking them deals heavy damage to the player, so healers have to be perfectly timed every time. At the same time, Rygolon periodically casts an ability that sends players into another realm.
He's just like making this up. The only thing I don't get is like when you're making this up like on the fly, how do you not put this lower in the list? You know what I mean? Like if you're going to put Rygolon on this list at all and you're just going to just be making all this shit up, everything he's saying right now is made up, then like why don't you just put it at the end where it doesn't matter as much? This is a confident makeup. He like confidently is making up that Rygolon is one of the most hated bosses ever.
Small group has to go in, kill adds quickly, and come back out without dying. Meanwhile, the rest of the raid continues the main phase and has to manage mechanics without those missing players. This is where most groups wipe. If someone failed to soak, died in the realm, or even used a cooldown at the wrong time, everything would fall apart. On Mythic, the difficulty spiked even harder. Players had to stagger cooldowns with absolute precision, and certain mechanics overlapped in ways that left zero margin for error. It was one of the hardest walls in the race to world first, and even in Heroic or Normal, it caused massive burnout.
On Mythic is an even bigger nightmare. This boss was sick.
Raid teams trying to progress. It also made the raid a nightmare to pug, because one person could wipe the group by not getting a pull when they had Dark Eclipse.
That's true. I mean, if someone soaked on the things didn't go down.
To beat Rygolon, you didn't need clever tricks, just consistency. Every orb soaked, every ad killed.
Crazy take. Insane take.
Every debuff handled. And that's exactly why players grew to hate it. It wasn't really hard, but it was exhausting. And at number 2, we have the Spine of Deathwing from the Dragon Soul in Cataclysm.
Predictable.
Spine
We
of
put that on our
Deathwing
list.
is supposed to be a dramatic turning point in the Dragon Soul raid. You're literally standing on Deathwing's back, tearing off his armor as he soars through the sky. It's one of those fights that sounds so much cooler in theory than it turned out to be in practice. The entire fight takes place on a...
Wait, can't believe he puts Rygolon but not Halandris? What do you mean? I mean, if you're talking about Heroic, Halandris was just so easy that you can't hate it. Rygolon's later in the raids, that makes sense. And on Mythic, Halandris was like really hard and really punishing, but then it was nerfed almost instantly to be completely like a joke. It had like the bombs were 30 seconds long. Like it was very easy. So it was, I don't think anyone would really like Halandris or would dislike Halandris. I would think Halandris Mythic was harder than Rygolon. Yes, but harder doesn't mean most hated. right? Like hated is like people can hate really good bosses, people can hate really bad bosses, but you're gonna hate the really bad bosses worse because like that means everyone hates them. If they're at least good bosses, or like some people appreciate a hard boss, them being hard doesn't mean bad. For some people, boss hard equals bad. That's some baby bitch shit, but you know that exists. But there's bosses that are universally hated by everybody. That's what this list should probably be about, right? Yeah, okay. Spine of Deathwing. This makes sense. I think part of this is like it was not super epic for like the end of an expansion. Like this boss had to follow the Lich King. Unfortunate. I think that's most of it, honestly. I don't think it's that bad of a boss in itself. Maybe it's just not epic. Like it's a second to last boss and you're fighting the boss's back. Like that sucks, you know. But it wasn't a super terrible
narrow
fight.
curved platform. Deathwing Spine.
Specifically, my job on this was to kite the Bloods when I did this boss, and I actually found that to be really fun.
The goal isn't to fight them directly, but to remove
because like kiting generally is like not fun, but kiting these was really hard. It was like you had to come up with your own strat on how you could even do it. It wasn't just like running around aimlessly AFK. You were like fucking locked in.
Re-armor plates by manipulating adds and fire. At set intervals, Deathwing rolls from side to side. If your raid doesn't group up properly, everyone gets thrown off and instantly dies. That means you have to deliberately shift your group back and forth to control the roll mechanic. It also means if you're soloing the fight years later, you have to literally move back and forth the entire fight. Standing still is not an option. Each armor plate is sealed down with a tendon, which is only exposed after you spawn an add called a hideous amalgamation. This add must absorb a precise number of smaller oozes scattered around the spine. Once it's charged, you bring it to the plate and kill it. Hardest fights that require.
Can you have a worse take than Rygolon?
Burst damage.
This list has been mostly good except for Rygolon, right? Like Dark Animus was like whatever. Spoils was so wrong. So he's got like Rygolon is egregious.
And it's one of the hardest healing fights of.
What do you guys think we're getting? We haven't said Skarn. Okay, first of all, whoever wrote this script for him, or if this is his opinion, does not include Skarn. They just weren't around in Dragonflight. I have personally never seen a community hate a boss more than Skarn. It is by far the most hated boss in all of the time I've been a content creator. I'm trying to think what else could be on here. He obviously did Spine, did Dark Animus, did Echo, or he hasn't done Echo of Notherian. That's like a Mythic only take, I think, because Echo of Notherian was fine on Heroic, which is I think what he's going to base his opinion mostly off of. If you noticed on the Rygolon take, he was like, even in Mythic, these had some things, which means like he's basing most of it on Heroic, or at least his inflection would make you think that. Mentioned Hellfire Assault. Oh, sorry, what I was going to say about Echo of Notherian. Echo of Notherian was basically bad on Mythic because of like map weak auras, but like that's just something you never think about on Heroic, so unlikely to make the list. Plus, that same raid had Skarn in it. Imagine picking a boss from that raid and it just doesn't include this one. He didn't mention ENR yet, and he's had a few transmog takes, so I'm definitely thinking it's ENR. Stone Legion Generals. Again, I don't think enough people hated this fight because on Heroic, it was easy. So that's a big, important thing to keep it off this list. And they fixed a lot of its issues like around a month after progression. So really only top guilds hated it. Like, well, more people hated it, but like top guilds were the ones that were like, what the fuck is this shit? Silken Court, I think, is probably just too recent. And Lords of Dread, he already picked Rygolon, so I doubt it. I actually don't think what he's going to pick is on this list. Except it should be Skarn. Like, it just, the answer to this question is Skarn. In my opinion, Skarn is the boss that has produced the most hate from the community
of all time. And on top of all of those accomplishments, it's also one of the most hated fights, but its throne may have finally been taken. And at number 1, we have Sylvanas Windrunner from the Sanctum of Domination in Shadowlands.
Okay, I should have seen this coming. It's a Heroic take. So, in Heroic, this boss, I mean, because, oh, dude, I should have known this because of lore, too. Like Sylvanas is just this major character, and then you fight Sylvanas, and then you end up walking around in P2 forever. It's just a really long boss. So it had like class stacking, but dude, that's the whole class stacking argument is so far away from how he's basing this decision. I imagine he won't even like refer to it. Could be wrong though. Last phase is great. Heroic and Mythic. P1 on Mythic, I think is good. P2 on Mythic is a little too long. P1 on Heroic, or P2 on Heroic is like like an illegally bad phase. Let's hear the take.
Sylvanas should have been one of WoW's most iconic raid encounters. Instead, it became one of its most hated. Not because the mechanics were broken, but because the fight was long, drawn out, and overloaded with mechanics that just dragged it down. The fight is split into 3 phases. Phase 1 takes place in a circular arena where Sylvanas bombards the raid with a mix of spread and debuffs, line attacks, and movement-based mechanics. The biggest threat here is domination chains. Players get tethered and need to break the chains by running away.
Okay.
Too slowly and they die, too fast and someone else might get clipped. You do this while dodging arrows, soaking
That shit's
zones,
easy.
and rotating cooldowns. Phase 2, the raid goes onto a long bridge suspended in the maw.
Yeah, the
Sylvanas leaps away
no matter what he says in P2 here, it'll be
and
right.
summons waves of adds, while your raid is forced to follow her down a narrow path. Along the way, you deal with orbs that need soaking, adds that must be interrupted, and constantly shifting platforms. This part of the fight wasn't just long, it was disorienting, with poor visibility and no room for error. Finally, in Phase 3, you return to a platform for a more traditional DPS burn. But Sylvanas
Bro, P3, what is the take about? I have never heard a take that P3 is bad. P3 is a great phase.
Pulling players into the air, silencing the raid, and marking half the group for death if mechanics aren't followed precisely. And the worst part,
Bro, P3
the
sick.
final phase requires a lot of coordinated raid placement, something that takes practice. Practice you
I hate practice.
could only get after 7 minutes of attempts each and every pool. To beat
Kinda
it,
true.
raids had to treat it like a marathon. Each phase had to be executed cleanly, with every group member knowing their exact job. Failing
Kind of true if you have a really good phase late into the fight, but getting to that phase only means you've gone through 7 minutes of bad.
once
If you don't
meant
like those
12
phases, that
plus
makes sense.
minutes of repetition. By the time you finally killed her, it didn't feel exactly satisfying, but it was a relief. If the second phase was just half as long, I'm sure it wouldn't have been so much of a hated fight, but that was not the case. Same with Spine of Deathwing. The fight sounds so much cooler on paper than it ended up being. Fighting Sylvanas
Does it really sound cool on
and
paper?
then chasing her down chains in the maw as she tries to flee, only to pin her down and finally get a chance to finish her off.
I feel like it is not cool on paper. I feel like Spine could have been an absolute banger encounter to play, like just purely gameplay wise, and it would have only ever be seen as mid in like the history of WoW because it's just simply you're fighting the boss's back.
Only she doesn't even die. She doesn't even get to the execute range as the fight ends at 50% health. So a lot of classes don't even get to bring their A game. It's like everything about the fight was working against it. And maybe it's just a recency bias, but the overall community reaction to it was just negative across the board, making it an easy shoo-in for number 1.
No honorable mentions or anything? Yeah, what do the comments say? This is from today, so Rygalon was personal for sure. Yup. Yup. This is 4 hours ago before I even reacted to it too. Apart from Rygalon and Sylvanas, I totally agree with this list. Chess Event and Karazhan are the same, and Hydrail and Archmon is annoying as fuck. Rygalon is just wrong. It was a banger. Dude, so many people are calling out Rygalon. So, I mean, fucking facts, dude. Why the literal fuck is Rygalon on this list? Dude, shout out Rygalon. Mythic Stone Legion General not being on this list is a war crime. Yeah, if you're referring to specifically Mythic, it is, yeah. The roll mechanic on Spine of Deathwing did not work that way. If everyone in the raid was on one side... why, bro, why are you getting into semantics here? Rygalon really is one of the best... Okay, any non-Rygalon reactions... Kind of surprising that Fallen Avatar, Tomb of Sargeras KJ, and Blast Furnace didn't appear on this. Oh, dude, Blast Furnace. Okay, well, this isn't... Again, this is the issue with this wasn't the list of the worst bosses. but it is a list of the most hated. Blast Furnace wasn't hated, but Blast Furnace was terrible. Terrible fight. But this is another thing. Kind of surprising that Fallen Avatar. Bro, is it really surprising that a really great boss that happened to be hard wasn't on this list? Hard doesn't equal bad, you know? For some people it does. You should get that checked out. I only rated in Classic and TVC. Like, why do people find hard equals bad? I mean, I guess there's like the Mythic plus angle. It's like I want to kill easy bosses, get my loot, and get out. Any hard boss is taking me farther away from the loot I want to do for Mythic plus, so mad. There's also hard bosses have a higher chance to have killed your guild. And like if your experience on a boss is, hey, my guild with all my friends in it died, you're going to hate that boss. Valid. Makes sense. Bosses being unkillable is arguably a fair reason to dislike them. Sure, but do you think this person got to Fallen Avatar when it was unkillable? I don't think so. I think like they probably got there like pretty late, or maybe it was probably just pretty late, you know? Boss is killable, but maybe it's too hard for their guild. I mean, I guess it makes like if you get to a boss, like think about Brood Twister, right? Why is Brood Twister really hated? I think the whole like weak aura assignment thing separate from that. Just obviously that sucks. Big reason you could hate the boss. But I think another reason is if you ever get to a boss that your guild is not good enough to do yet, either it hasn't been nerfed enough or you haven't gotten enough gear, you're going to have a really unpleasant experience with that boss because you're trying to do something that you can't do. And obviously that's not going to be fun. And Brood Twister was like that for a few reasons, but the main one being the first 4 bosses were so easy. Like if you were on Sikran and Rashanan for as long as you were on Rick and Styx, or even half of Styx, Brood Twister would have been nerfed before your guild ever even looked at that boss, and you would have hated it significantly less than you did. Still a lot, because weak aura, big weak aura boss, bad thing. But that's also true. So like anytime you're at a boss that you shouldn't be at, it's going to be super negative. Bad FPS. True. That also happened on Anduin. Anduin intermissions gave people a lot of FPS issues. I hated Flame Leviathan. Interesting. I thought people had like a lot of nostalgia for that. A lot of nostalgia. Without looking at this video. Bro, people clicking on a video, not watching it, state they're not watching it, but then comment. That's such a strange interaction. I mean, I kind of get it. Maybe they just don't got time, bro. They're busy. But they're passionate about the topic. That stupid spin boss from Sanctum. Oh, you guys, a couple of you mentioned Fate Scribe. Bro, I love the Rygalon respect. High Tinker Mechatork? Yeah, that's fine, boss. Oh, dude. In Heroic, though, High Tinker Mechatork was like the absolute death of Heroic groups. Like, you were just, there was no way. I remember that. That was a killer, a group killer. The realist Duramu. Oh, a grandpa. Max, are you really not playing much this season? Oh, no. Yeah, no. All right, look at a few more. Surprised N'Zoth isn't on the list. At least personally, it's the worst. Wait, Carapace or
Reggie N'Zoth. I don't think N'Zoth was a great fight. But I don't think N'Zoth was... Well, okay, we're not talking bad. We're talking hated. Bro, maybe if you're an LFR raider. Did you guys ever do LFR N'Zoth? That shit was crazy. I can't believe they released that. That was... They were just getting fucking annihilated. All right, cool. That's it. All right. It's been so real. I'll see you guys tomorrow, maybe? I mean, I've been streaming a lot recently. I'll probably do it again tomorrow. Fuck it. All right, see ya.